Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Redline Motorsport for round 3 of the RLM Endurance Championship. We are here at Kyalami this evening for the third round. We're actually halfway through the championship at this point in time, but yeah, round 3 for the Endurance Championship. My name is Ryan Gill, and I'm going to be the man behind the cameras tonight. Alongside me for commentary, I have our local South African George Smith.
Hi Ryan, how are you doing tonight? And good to have you with me here at our local circuit, Kyalami.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone obviously from South Africa, obviously to give commentary alongside here tonight. And we also have everyone's favourite American at Redline Motorsport. It's Jesse Lee.
Favorite American, Ryan? That is a incredibly bold claim. We've got so many great American drivers and team members here at RLM, but you know what? I'll take the compliment. We are here at Kyalami today, and I'm super excited for a couple of things, one of which you guys will see sooner than later, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But Ryan, it is just excellent to be back here for the Endurance Championship. Hard to believe this is the halfway point in the season.
Yeah, it is. I mean, only 6 races for the Endurance Championship, of course, running on a bi-weekly basis, but my word, has it gone by fast. I mean, it feels like just a week ago we were at Monza, but obviously, you know, the world moving fast, even at this point in the world where, you know, everyone's unfortunately locked in their homes still because of the global situation, but we're not here to talk about that tonight. We're here to take your mind away from the real world and bring it into the virtual world. And we have about 3.5 minutes left of practice here at Kyalami, and we've got a very, very special race and a very special section of this program for you later on indeed that Jesse alluded to earlier. However, we did discuss we're at the halfway point, so Kyalami is the third round of the championship. The other rounds we have left are Silverstone, Barcelona and Suzuka. And those are going to be 3 absolutely amazing races as well. The 2 races we've had before this one have been incredible, and I really cannot wait to get started, you know, with Kyalami. This is honestly one of my favourite tracks in the world, and I of course know that it's one of George's favourite tracks, with it being so close to him.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a big thing that Kunos decided to throw Kyalami into the game itself, and so cool to see just how much detail they've actually added into it. I had the privilege of going and watching the 9-hour there last year in November, and I mean, it's going to be a little bit different to what happened in the real 9-hour there. We've got clear skies here. It kind of went through all different stages of weather through the 9-hour. There were stages where they just had to, you know, put all the cars back into the pits because it was just flooded. The track surface was just undrivable. But you are right, it is definitely a circuit that I am very fond of. Not a circuit that I'm particularly good at. I was kind of alluding earlier in a chat to just say that you know, as much as I love it, I also have a little bit of a hate for it at the same time, mostly because it is so technical and quite a handful to muster and really try and get the most out of. A difficult track to try and make overtakes happen. You really are relying on drivers making mistakes with their braking points and, you know, capitalizing on getting a good exit really to get moves done. Throughout the rest of the race, there's just a bunch of dangerous corners. One of them would be Cheetah, which I'm quite excited for. That's the second last corner. There's a big sausage curb on the inside line, which, you know, if cars are focusing on the racing side and not paying attention to the line that they follow there, it can just end in disaster before the entry to the pit straight. So I'm excited. Kyalami, it's I'm going to just catch up on words if you let me talk too much about my home circuit, Ryan.
That's all right, George, and I tell you what, after some of the racing we've had so far throughout the course of this championship, I am not expecting this race to be any different. I'm expecting this to be action-packed, and you did say, you know, mistakes are going to play a big part with overtaking around here, but what we've seen in the past from races that we've run here is that they are incredibly close from start to finish. We've seen that in the Porsche Cup. We've seen that in the real-life driver event that we actually ran here a couple of months back as well. So, yeah, I'm expecting it to go exactly the same way here today. But as we come towards the end of practice, Looking at top 10, there's a good mix of cars in there, but something I've definitely been looking at throughout practice over the last 2 weeks is that the Aston Martin looks good here.
Yeah, it most certainly does, Ryan. And this is one of the circuits I think that this car has a better than good shot, I would refer to it as. And it's one of those things where everything in ACC is about the details. For those of you that may not know, every single track and every single car for that track has a specific BOP that doesn't carry over to another track. If you are driving this particular number 43 Audi here, its BOP for Kyalami is completely different than it would be at Spa, more likely than not. That's how intricate and realistic this sim is. It goes to that level to give you the fidelity of what it would be like racing in SRO style events. So that's what you're looking at here. Just wanted to let everybody know, just as a reminder, that that's why sometimes, as Ryan said, you have the differences in cars. Like, for instance, some places the Aston Martin struggles mightily. This isn't going to be one of those places, though, as practice has finished officially. The countdown timer has started. Most of the cars in pit road, it must be said, think they've got what they got. One interesting thing from practice, though, I must say, gentlemen, is not a lot of the pro drivers up at the top of the board. Should any of these guys be worried about that in practice, or is it just because they didn't feel the need to come out and run a lap?
I think that at the end of the day, practice is practice, and you know, if you are out on track setting a time, it's all well and good. I think that when it comes to qualifying, I think that's where everybody's going to get their heads down and focused. It was interesting seeing some of those Aston Martins at the top. Definitely a car that is well balanced for Kyalami. From my experience, the Porsches, not being biased here, the Porsches and the Audis are also very strong in terms of the BOP here. So it'll be interesting to see just how everyone gets going, and just look how busy this pit exit is as everybody bustles out and tries to get themselves on track to start their qualifying session. Of course, there's only 10 minutes for guys to go and set themselves a lap here, and with 37 cars on the grid, plenty of difficulties in finding a good bit of clean air. So I think getting out early is a good idea, and kind of waiting for that pack to get out too is also, not going to be a bad idea here to get yourself a good run for the qualifying session.
Yeah, of course, we only have 10 minutes for qualifying here, so it very much is, get on with it kind of affair around this place. We're looking at Samuel Ratz at the moment in the 192 Racing Line Motorsport Ferrari. Very nice livery on that car indeed. Of course, we do love to talk liveries here at the commentary box in Redline Motorsport, but I think we've gone over liveries enough for this championship, and if we keep bringing them up every race, I think we're honestly just gonna... People are going to get bored of it, and I think there's only so many liveries we can talk about, as I do see Wolf Matushka's very pink Audi in the background that I know Jesse Lee is very, very fond of.
Yeah, I like his Audi. I've been able to cover him for the past, about 4 months or so, and I love the Pepto-Bismol colored car, and I've got to see it featured quite a lot out front, really, and just in RLM in general, there always seemed to be a contender. In fact, they finished runner-up, I believe, in the first round of the championship at Monza. So, I mean, it's really great to see all these different colored liveries. I mean, but beyond that, Ryan, I mean, we will still, as you probably know, we still will talk about some of them going through. There's just so many cars, 30 plus cars here today, ladies and gentlemen. This is an endurance championship 2-hour race. There is a mandatory pit stop, and there is a driver change and driver time limit. Every team here has at minimum 2 drivers to compete in here. This is the pro split, but there are still 3 different classes. You've got the white placard indicating pro, the silver placard indicating silver or pro am as it's called, and the red placard is the am class. These are all separated out by qualifying session that we did before the season started and based on overall pace. So just give you a little rundown of that. And just one other thing, while we have a split second to talk about it, thank you guys for showing today here on Twitch. It's lovely to have you all, and thank you very much for the follows that you've already given out today. That's very much appreciated. We hope that you enjoy this race, as nearly half this session has gone by, guys, and we are going to start seeing laps set. Do you, Mr. George Smith, have time to go out, run a lap, go back into pit road, make an adjustment, and get back out? Or is 10 minutes just too small of a time frame to get a second run in?
I mean, I think that you would probably have tried to get all of those things set up before. I think you would be able to squeeze in a quick dash back. We see Rats go across the line to set our first time on the board, 141.1. Respectable time coming out from that Ferrari. But yeah, Jesse, it's a tough call. I think that practice session that we saw earlier on in the start of the stream is definitely where the guys would probably be doing those last minute changes, making sure that they've, set themselves up for the track temperatures, made sure that their tire temperatures and pressures are, running at the right sort of temperature for them to do a second lap, hot lap. Yeah, that's kind of what you want to do. Yeah, you want to do just 2 laps, 3 laps of, where you've done it, you're happy, you go back to the pits and you set up your race strategy and get focused for the 2 hours that are ahead. Because, of course, that qualifying is only one part of, the whole race. Of course, it's nice to get yourself up into the front early on, but with 2 hours to go, anything can happen. And, when it comes down to the fuel loads and how many liters of fuel these cars burn, that's also going to be a factor to consider. So, the likes of the Aston Martins possibly going to be, sipping at the fuel a little bit lighter than the Porsches or Audis would be. So it will be interesting to see how strategy works out in a 2-hour race. And I do like these endurance events to really simulate and get you to those levels where pit strategies do come into effect.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good point. I mean, this is the game that we play, and the game that we play is what works and what doesn't work. 9 times out of 10, the person who wins a race isn't necessarily the driver or team that's the fastest all day. We've certainly already seen that in this series, and I think the track history of racing and sim racing in general proves that to a fault. But strategy is super important, so that's why we talk about these things. We talk about the sort of the things that maybe typically when you're watching a race you don't think about, but this is a very competitive qualifying session, it must be said. We do have Berrezzini out in first place now. He set a 40.407. That's the quickest lap. That David Chessa had the quickest lap at a 40.9. So he gapped him a little bit there by about 5/10, but don't despair. This will continue to fall, I believe, as Berrezzini is actually on a quicker lap. But Wolf Matuszka in the currently 4th position in the number 25 Audi is, I think, unless it's lying to me, is tracking several tenths quick and would be about where you would expect to be for the pole at the moment, but we will keep an eye on that. But we are also keeping an eye on Berrezzini, who is absolutely blistering this lap right now. He's 3/10 up on his time, which would pretty much nullify Wolf Matuszka's charge, who has just been dropped to 5th position. Jardier slots into 3rd with 3 minutes and some change left. Here goes Berrezzini. He's 2/10 up on his time. He's not going to lose that, and he improves to a 40.185. Quickest time of the day in qualifying as we go back to Wolf Matuszka. Wolf Matuszka in 5th place. He's 7/10 up. This won't be good enough for pole, but it will be good enough to slot him onto the 2nd position, a 40.2. He missed it by almost definitely a 1/10 of a second. That's how close it's getting out here. Now David Chissa is now on a flying lap. He will come across the line here. He's 3/10 or so up. How far up the ladder does he go?
I think
he must have invalidated
it was invalidated.
Oh dear. Well, the war continues up front, though, between Berrezzini and Matuszka. Berrezzini has a 10th up on his time, but Matuszka has 2/10, and if my math is not very much incorrect, that would be enough for Matuszka to take the pole position away. And guys, if the race ends up anything like this, as Wolf Matuszka lost all of his time coming through the third sort of sector, or excuse me, second sector here, and is now tracking in the red, in fact, but Berrezzini is holding steady. Guys, if the race is anything like this, it's going to be 2 hours of chaos.
Berrezzini, he did actually lose almost 3/10 coming down to Crocodile earlier on that lap that he set, the 140.1. So if he can, get that last sector before coming up to Cheetah right, he can definitely find another 2/10 and drop him down into the 139s. Wolf Matuszka, of course, invalidating that lap when he came out through Clubhouse, so he's just taken it easy. Obviously just going to save his tires so that he can set another fast-paced lap now right before the end of quali. So he'll probably get this last lap in, and this will be his final chance to try and attempt that charge up to the front of the grid. But you know what, Jesse? Starting second at Kyalami is actually a great thing to do. It gives you the inside line as you come into that second corner, Crowthorne here, as Matuszka goes through it now. If you get that inside line, it can actually get you out and give you the go-ahead down the straight. You even find that your pole sitters, if they stay on the outside line, can lose out to third place too. So Matuszka starting in second, not going to be a bad place for the pink car, the number 25 Audi.
I don't think that's a bad idea, George, but I just don't think Wolf Matuszka has it in him to sit second place. He wants that pole award, and he is tracking a 10th quicker, which, depending on how much of a 10th quicker it is, might be enough to give him the pole. But I absolutely agree with you, George. Whoever's in second, you're right, isn't bad. I've never in any sort of Formula or GT racing been too upset about starting in second place. That's still the front row. That's still a fighting chance. And sometimes, in some cases, as you mentioned, that is actually the advantage position getting down into the first turn. Will Matuszka still straddling that line for that 10th, and that's the reason that's important, folks, is that's all that's in it as time has expired. All flying laps will count in this 10-minute qualifying session, setting up a 2-hour race endurance championship here at RLM. Wolf Matuszka, as pictured here, fighting for it. He's dead level with his previous time. No improvement, but can make up a lot in this final turn. We will see if he can get anything. All he needs is a 10th. And I don't think, guys, he's going to get it. He doesn't. In fact, he falls a few tenths below. A few drivers are making improvements. Actually, fifth place, David Chisa is making improvement. He's 3/10 up. That'll slot him up into third place if he can hold fast to that position. We'll see if he can do that. And I think he invalidated his lap is what happened there, and he has reset to pit road, in fact, as the final couple of cars come across the line here to end qualifying. And guys, it's really close at the top, and now that I look at it, it's really close through the field. Is that a product of the BOP, the track, the drivers? What is that coming from? Why is it so close?
I mean, it's a massive combination of everything, really. I mean, the quality of the drivers that we have here tonight, obviously, and the BOPs for all the cars is different dependent on the track, and I think the BOP has done actually fairly well. Just a quick note on something, a lot of people having trouble connecting to the servers tonight. Just a bit of a clarification on that. It is not Redline Motorsport servers specifically that are having the issue, it is the Kunos servers that are having an issue. So it's making it so that some people for Split 1 and Split 2 are struggling to connect or cannot connect at all. Unfortunately, the admins have looked at the issue. Restarting the server will not solve the problem, and it will only delay the race. So unfortunately, we're just going to have to go ahead as is, and I don't think we're going to have the full grid of cars tonight, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is a shame, Ryan, but honestly, I mean, things happen in real racing, things happen in sim racing. Some things are just out of not only our control, but the sim's control. And unfortunately, you have to crack on, as you British people love to say. Do you know that in the 90s, you guys infected us with that? We started saying crack on in America as well. We lost the keep calm bit because, we are incapable of such things. But we kept the crack on thing as quite a humorous splash to the grid there, as a couple of interesting things I want to point out from qualifying is that Muthen in the number 18 Ferrari, that's a silver or Pro-Am class car. They are going to start third in this race. So that's very interesting. They are on the overall podium and first in silver class. That's really cool. They actually beat out the likes of Samuel Ratz and Jardier in the pro class. We do see that a bit here, and where a silver car or a AM car will go ahead and perform a bit better. And a couple of familiar names on the list, of course, Osi Takamaki, who I thought had a shot at the silver pole today. He'll start third in his class, and I can't say his name, but I can talk about the Commentator's Curse team, number 52. They're starting inside the top 10 as well. They said that they've overperformed in an interview I did with them yesterday, but they say that they're fairly confident in what they have between the two drivers, but perhaps they feel they've overperformed. I disagree with that. I think they're right on their pace, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they've overperformed. One quick thing, this is probably going to be a session restart for the cars that obviously have fallen to this minor grid bug. We have seen this before, and it usually just requires a short session restart. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for this little hiccup to be fixed, we do have a track guide for you guys here tonight. So I'm going to quickly put that on for you. So if you don't, if you want to learn something new about Kyalami, you will be able to do that for the next minute or so. So I hope you enjoyed the track guide, and we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome to the Kyalami Racing Circuit, located 15 miles north of Johannesburg. The 2.81 mile circuit, built in 1961 and last changed in 2016, has 16 corners and a lap record of 142.272 set by Porsche in 2019. Overtaking opportunities wherever you look here. The first is into turn 2, as the long start finish straight will give you a great run onto those ahead of you. Overtaking is plentiful, but watch out at turn 10, get your braking wrong and you could be going into the back of your opponents instead. And finally, down through the mine shaft and into the crocodiles will give you a nice opportunity to pass your opponent with little reply. Alright, so we are back, and there has been a session restart, but it seems that a couple of the cars are still suspect to these little hiccups we're having at the start. I think didn't they have a bug fix just slightly before the race going live this evening, so maybe that has something to do with it, not entirely sure. But the admins behind the scenes will be doing everything they can to make sure that this goes through smoothly. Obviously, some things are out of our control, unfortunately. Like when the game does get updated, there are sometimes slight hiccups like this, and unfortunately, what we do and what other communities do doesn't factor into what Kunos does. So unfortunately, certain things are out of our control, but we're doing our best to make sure that it all goes along as smoothly as possible. To answer someone's question, do the cars have damage? I don't actually know the answer to that question. It would be interesting if they did have damage, but whilst we wait for all this to get sorted out, let's move on to probably our favourite segment of every race ever.
I can't wait.
The favourite segment of every race ever. We'll get on to what Jesse's excited about in just a moment. But the first thing, Jesse Lee, because you are the cursed man himself, who are you going to put down for a win today?
Well, I think it's hard to argue that the 126 Porsche team hasn't done a great job in qualifying, but if there's one thing I know about the number 25 Audi team and Wolf Matuszka and his team, is that they are just tenacious. They will fight you tooth and nail to get a win. And if they wouldn't have had problems at at Monza, I should say, they probably could have had the win there. They've looked great all season. They've looked incredibly comfortable. Put me down for another Wolf Matuszka curse today, Ryan, because I just can't see any eventuality that would keep him from winning this race today.
Well, that's mighty brave of you, especially. Sorry,
I thought we lost Ryan there for a second.
Slight interruption there. Hiccups going on everywhere. Technical difficulties championship at the moment. I just have received some information from our race admin that the formation lap will go ahead this time round because the cars are ghosted, so there should, in theory, be no damage on the cars. So hopefully that means that they're all fine. It just means that the likes of Jardier and another Ferrari on the grid are going to have to pull away from that.
They're just doing a Le Mans start.
Yeah,
it's very traditional.
WEC start here for a couple of the cars. Interesting fact, actually, not sure if you heard about the virtual Le Mans race going on the 13th, 14th of June. If you don't know about that, go have a look at that because it's going to be very interesting. But I digress. George, this is your home circuit. Jesse's already given his predictions. He's going for Wolf Matuszka. Who are you going for today?
That Orion Race Team Porsche on the front of the grid, the number 126. I definitely am going to favor the Porsches here today. I feel like out of all the bias that I've had previously, this is where I can really back the Porsches. Although, for quali, it doesn't look like we have too many of them up in the field. So that leaves me with definitely eager to start for the Orion Race Team. I'll back them.
Yeah, and just a quick update as well for anyone who may be interested in what was happening with Split 2, because of course we have 2 splits running here tonight. Split 2 has had a qualifying restart because a majority of the grid was not able to connect, so they've deemed that they will need a complete server restart for Split 2. So Split 2 is running a bit further behind. There is unfortunately no stream or broadcast, more specifically, for Split 2. But as far as we are aware, Split 1 is going ahead, as I believe Matthias Egger is just pulling away from his pit grid at the moment, and I think we'll also see, yep, there you go, Jardier is also just getting his car into position to pull away. So formation lap is underway. Unfortunately, we will not have every single car available for both splits here today because of some QNOS server issues, but we'll do the best with what we have. And to be honest, I think we've got a pretty stacked grid. Although, for the first time this season, there are no AM cars in the top 10.
Yeah, it's actually quite strange indeed. I'm not sure we will finish that way, but of course the first AM car is Katarki. I cannot pronounce that name, I apologize, but it's the 248. They are the top qualifying AM car, and they're in 18th place. So we will see, and we will see exactly what the organizers are going to do for this race, and be very interesting to see if we go ahead like this. But yeah, quite a couple of interesting storylines in this race that we are going to follow. Can Egger in the 126, can they outlast Matuszka? Can we get an AM car into the top 10, which we are accustomed to having? I know that might sound weird to some of you, but it's actually not at all. And can a silver class car park it on the podium? That would also be incredibly grand. Now, back to you, Ryan. I think you have something to ask of George.
I do actually have something to ask of George. However, I have just been notified by Race Control and one of our admins, Mike Jones, for this evening. I think we may be getting a server restart potentially. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this. This has just come through in the Endurance Split 1 chat from Mike Jones, so I would imagine we're going to get a server restart, as that has now just been confirmed by the fact that my game has frozen for a moment. So it looks like we will be going ahead with a server restart to try and get as many people back into the grid, back into the server as possible. Sorry for all the confusion that's going on here tonight, everyone. We'll quickly switch you over to our Be Right Back screen whilst we sort out all the stuff on the back end. But we will be having a server restart to try and get as many people into the server as possible. I think we were missing 15 drivers at least from Split 1, so I think the admins want to try and get as many people back in as possible, which is fair enough, because I think 15 drivers missing out is quite a significant portion of the grid. So they're going to try and do what they can. It does mean that we're going to have a restarted qualifying session like we had at Monza. So the grid that we did see is not going to be the new grid for the actual start of the race. We're going to have another 10-minute qualifying session, I believe, so that'll be interesting. But apologies for all the delays and all the stuff going on. Unfortunately, Kunos updates and Kunos server issues are completely out of our control, so, you know, we have to do the best with what we have, but we appreciate the patience of everyone here tonight, and I hope that the amazing show that we can put on when the 2-hour race gets started can make up for all the delays.
Yeah, indeed. Sort of gremlins are the name of the game. They do happen sometimes. Can't do anything about it, but roll with the punches. We are rolling with punches here. This is going to have a server restart. It's going to be a 5-minute practice and then that 10-minute qualifying session, which means that they have to do qualifying all over again. As a driver, guys, this has got to be nerve-wracking for you to have to do that, but it's just like anything else. It's like being a real racing driver and having a session canceled or moved. You get hyped, you get ready to go, you get your helmet on, or in this case, you get in your sim rig, you're ready to go, and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under you, and you have to wait around. You have to wait for a restart, you have to wait for the rain to let up, you have to do whatever, depending on, you know, if it's sim versus reality. So this is sort of a test of these drivers' mental capabilities at this point, because they had a plan in their head, and now it's gone completely upside down. They've got to do it all over again. As drivers, you two, would that mess with you, or are you okay with that?
I mean, I think before before the start of a race, more specifically an endurance race, I think it does definitely mess with you. As we just temporarily get all the cameras back up and running. Sorry for the delay, guys. But yeah, it definitely does. It does mess with you, I think, because, you know, you're all ready to go, and then there's delays, and you don't know what's happening all the time. Obviously, you know, we try and make sure that there is as much communication between the admins and the drivers and race control as possible. But, you know, sometimes you might feel, oh, you know, why is it being delayed? We don't know what's going to happen and all that. And it does start to get in your head a bit. And I think that does kind of separate the really amazing drivers from the people that, you know, I won't say not amazing, but the outstanding drivers and, you know, everyone else. I think that kind of separates the pack a bit, is the people that can deal with things like delays and, you know, they can put it behind them and still go out there and perform at their peak.
I would agree with that. I think that if you were good enough to set a blistering lap time earlier, you should be capable of doing it again, unless you had what I normally get in qualifying, which is the stroke of luck, and then you would be pretty upset. I would most definitely be mumbling to myself that was the best quali of my life, and I'll never repeat it. But, you know, it is what it is, and you don't really have an option. You get out there and you go and reset your quali lap. It, like you said, Jesse, you know, I touched on it earlier at the live Kyalami event in November. The number of race stops and starts was, you know, almost as much as the weather changes. You know, it was just that kind of thing. So it happens at racing. It's happened here today. Some late updates coming out on the Sims side. Nothing that we can control. And we get to, you know, talk about another qualifying session. So we get to see if guys can come out and rematch their pace, or if we're going to see someone else come and top the leaderboard. It's exciting for us as viewers and commentators. It's disappointing for the drivers.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like that, but for me personally, dealing with the golden era of sim racing, where server issues and getting a league race together, and that back in the day, guys, I'm talking about with 12 cars. It was a monumental task to get that underway, regardless, and we had 5-6 server restarts in some of the sims that shall remain nameless because they're not Soto Corsa sims, but. It's one of those things where you have to prepare yourself mentally for that kind of thing. And I definitely recall once in my sim racing career, qualifying the best I had ever done. It was first or second. It was front row, and then being told that, oh, we're gonna have to restart qualifying. And indeed it was, and I qualified incredibly poorly, and that messed with me the entire race. So that's a storyline too. We're just adding to the storylines. We'll see what happens here, because certainly with the Monza restart that we had in the first round of this championship, that happened. The grid was thrown around. There was differences in the qualifying order the second time around. So everybody at home, play along. And is it what we're attempting to do, or what the admins are attempting to do here at RLM, is of course make a fair and equal race, and that's of course what the server restart is for. So we will have to pay attention to exactly what happens again, because we are again live here at qualifying. Deja vu, Groundhog Day, whatever you want to call it. 9 minutes and a half to go here in qualifying as these drivers go out. They probably will get 2 attempts in all reality at a quick lap, and a lot of the guys going out in a big group, a big clump there, as you saw, all attempting to get the best they can out of their machinery, get a quick lap in, and then perhaps come in, make an adjustment or two, or just reset, get a new set of tires, and go back out again. Do we think, boys, that they're going to be quicker in this session now that they've already had one already, or do you think the times at about a 40.1, do you think that'll stand? Do you think that's about what all we'll see here?
I think that we could maybe see us breaking into the 39s. I think that there were potentials coming out in the previous quali session, a couple of mistakes. We do see Burgess and Fornacirio out on their outlaps here, not giving up track position at all in their qualifying divisions here, not giving each other the room. One of them wants to be that lead car, and of course Burgess in that Bentley, the gold Bentley, was the car that led out of the pits first. So the Porsche doing the right thing, letting him go up ahead. That's what you want to do. And I guess Florencinho also just wants to give himself a decent attempt at a lap time. Matushka, is that Matushka that's come past? It is. It's Matushka has come past to start his flying lap. So I guess that Porsche, trying to give himself a bit of room, has kind of been caught up by some of the cars behind. It's a balancing act out on track. Berrezzini, the man that we saw setting the quickest lap time previously, will be out on track as well as we switch over to Eric De Bron in that Aston Martin. And like we talked about earlier, the Aston Martins here on fuel load will most definitely be happy compared to the Porsches. He's going to go and throw it through Sunset. Now a very difficult right-handed corner where you're almost just on the limits of traction before you then have to get on the brakes and go back down through Clubhouse. 2 corners that definitely allow for some interesting action. You are either brave or not brave before you then send it on through the S's, which of course not a place that you can make moves, but you can get yourself a little bit closer to other drivers as you make your way up to the top of Leeuwkop, the blind right-hander. You come up, you can't see where you need to brake. Suddenly the track disappears and disappears down to the left before you go down the long sweep, which is the mine shaft. And this is a very quick left-handed corner before you slam on the brakes again for the right-hander. That is Crocodile, and you don't want to miss that inside apex. You'll see guys aiming for it so you can get the drive out, get the speed that you need to carry on through Cheetah. And that vicious sausage curve going to show itself on stream before De Bron going to round the final corner named Ingwe to go onto the start finish straight. The number 76 here going to go across the line. Let's see what lap time De Bron sets for himself there, and he's going to do a 142.135. So definitely not going to be the pole sitter for very long as Jardia comes and slides on in there with a 141.2. An interesting outlap so far, and Matushka is going to get up there to a 141.109 coming out.
Yeah, that's absolutely the fastest we've seen from anybody, that 41.109. That's what Matushka was on pace for in the very first qualifying session, but couldn't quite get it to come to him. But now he has done it. Jardier is about a 10th behind him, so that's pretty good for Jardier. And Jaitlin, who is in third place, is less than a 10th behind Jardier. And of course, we have Burgess. Burgess less than a 10th behind Jaitlin at the moment. Of course, the latter two drivers we talked about were silver drivers. This is a brand new sort of event for them. You get to redo this all over again, and look what we have at the top. Silver driver Osi Takamaki has set a 41.085, and that is the quickest lap that we've seen all weekend.
Jesse Barazini is coming through the cheetah at the moment, and he's about to cross the start-finish line, so I'm keen to see what he's going to do as well. Of course, they set themselves up the pole sitting a lap previously, and Barazini going to go across the line now with a 140.2 and is going to secure that pole position temporarily, unless Wolf Matushka can answer back and take it back.
That is indeed fantastic and right on the money. That is Barazini. I may have misspoke earlier. I said a 41 flat was the quickest we've seen. I meant that a 40.1 was the quickest. I was very off. My mistake and my apologies, as Fornasario has set the quickest lap so far at a 40.137, just coming across the line, beating Barazini. That's looking pretty fantastic, all things considered, for him. And of course, Jardier back there in third place. Muthen comes all the way up to fourth place. Silver Cup cars, or the Pro-Am series. Of course, all of these teams and drivers competing in their own category, not necessarily against each other. If you are a pro driver, you're not necessarily fighting the Silver Cup cars or the AM cars for that matter, but at the end of the day, you are a racing driver, and every position up the overall ladder is bragging rights, even though it doesn't give you more points.
JC, you're 100% right. When you are a racing driver at the end of the day, that bragging rights factor is so important. And, when you're chatting to other drivers, they're aware of what your pace is, and every time that you're out in a competitive server, I think you have to represent yourself at the best that you can. There's permanently people, with their eyes out there looking for drivers for teams. And, at no stage do I think, anyone's going to just settle back and just accept not being a little bit higher up, especially if they know that they can find time at a track like Kyalami, where it is frustrating and it does rely on pin perfect positioning of your car throughout all the corners. It can be a bit frustrating, but I think everybody here is going to just continue just chasing down and seeing what they can do. Matushka is going to jump himself up. He will take third for now. It does do a good 140.584. So the guys that are doing 140s here, I mean, we saw the 139s coming out. 140s are great. Race pace will be interesting to see what we get out of there, but everybody here giving it their all, and that's what I want to see.
Just a quick notice, you may have thought to yourself, wow, we've been on Wolf Matushka for a long time in this qualifying session. Just a quick update for you, the ACC broadcasting tool on my end has stopped responding and is failing to reconnect temporarily, so unfortunately, for now at least, we are severely limited in how we can navigate between drivers for broadcasting. It's just technical difficulties all over the place tonight, folks. We do apologise immensely. But at the moment, it is Fornasiro up at the top, 139.924, which I do believe was about a 10th quicker than our previous pole time, was it not, earlier today?
You're absolutely correct, Ryan.
Yeah, we didn't see them break into the 139, so maybe a little bit of the qualifying nerves would be settled out having to redo it. You had your 10-minute shot earlier, now you've got a free 10 minutes to go and do the best that you can. So I guess that at the end of the day, these are the top tier drivers and the best in the splits. So split one coming out and improving on their lap times, not shocking us, as we continue watching around with the number 117 Porsche, currently sitting in second on the leaderboard. Going to come around to the start-finish line now. Will cross it. Does he jump himself up? He doesn't. So Barzini will still stay as the pole sitter. Fornaserio will start in second, but like I mentioned earlier, if you weren't here, starting second at Kyalami, giving you that inside line coming into Crowthorne, not a bad move.
Just a slight correction for you there, George. It's not Barazini that stays top, it's actually Barazini that goes top. It was Fornaserio that was actually top just about 30 seconds ago, and it's Barazini that has now set a faster lap time, so he's put that car back on pole position where it was originally. And Wolf Matuszka is 2/10 down currently, so Wolf Matuszka not being able to put himself on the front row so far. Just about 18 seconds of qualifying left. We're going to have to see what any of these guys can do. The top 10 at the moment covered by just under a second.
Yeah,
thanks
it's
for
actually...
correcting me there. Oh.
No, sorry, George. Go on, please.
No, I was going to just thank Ryan for correcting me there, because Barazini's lap time that he did set there, 139.888. Now that is some extreme pace coming out in quali here, and as you can see, just obliterating that second place time from Fornaserio. So I'm impressed, and I'm keen to see. I mean, I did pick the number 126 Porsche as our winner for the race when we were in the previous what feels like a pseudo warm-up session. But I definitely feel like with the times that are coming out from that Porsche, of course, there are teammates to consider, but that number 126 is going to look mighty impressive at the top of the qualifying times.
Yeah, and as qualifying does come to an end, it is Barazini on pole and Fornaserio alongside him on the front row. Wolf Matuszka, Jaroslav Honzik, Burgess Chiesa all in the pit lane. It's only Takamaki at the moment that is still out on the track. And also Muthen as well within the top 10, but realistically I don't think they'll be challenging for pole position.
Well, that was hotly contested, that qualifying session. We got even closer for the top two, though the order has changed. No more silver driver on the overall podium after qualifying. That's a big difference. And the 248 AM car has put his car further up the grid into 16th place, but the other AM drivers have almost completely gone missing out of the top 23 or so. But that is the results of the second qualifying session. You got Barazini on pole 126. Nothing has changed there. What has changed for second is Fornaserio, and his 117 Porsche has taken the second position. Wolf Matuszka 2/10 behind in his number 25 Audi, and Jardier in the number 49 Ferrari has put up a fourth place position. I think he was third in the last session, or maybe he was fourth. Osi Takamaki has improved mightily here. 43rd, or excuse me, his number 43 Audi. Weird seeing him in an Audi after driving a Nissan for so long, but times change and things change, don't they? But it's worked out well for him at fifth place, and that is the first of your silver drivers. And then right behind him, Burgess in the 72 Bentley. That's the big boy, the Boatley. And that's all amazing for him, and that's the top two in that class. Believe right now Ryan's going to make a few minor changes, and while we do that, George and I are going to have a little discussion as the countdown timer for the race start is going on. George, is there anything that surprised you about that second qualifying session as opposed to the first?
Not particularly. I do feel like the Porsches and the Audis have a particularly. Do we have another issue with cars on the grid again in the background there? I do believe I see a sideways facing Audi at this point in the race. There's something definitely not going quite right with the race start procedures.
Yeah, it seems like whatever update Kunos have released just this evening has probably not gone exactly to plan, is probably the terminology I'll use, the more professional terminology. Yeah, it's unfortunate, it is what it is. We'll see what what the admins can do about it, but at this point in time, we are still on the break screen. For those of you wondering why you can't see what's going on, we're just on the break screen at the moment. Whilst I get all the cameras back up, I do have the broadcasting tool working again, so that's great. I can actually see who's on the grid now, and I can actually change between which car I'm looking at, as I can see a Honda flick at least 20 meters up into the air, so I do think we have a significant issue gridding here at the moment.
If we're going to rate the scoring on the acrobatics that we've seen, I would give it a perfect 10.
I give him an 8.7 because he did not stick the landing, and landing is part of it. I mean, you know,
he's still busy. You're interrupting him mid acrobatics, JC Lee.
Nah, he came out of a triple sow cow and he did not land it. It wasn't a solid footing. I'm actually going to bump him down to a 6.5. I mean, if you think my score is bad, the Ukrainian judge gave him a 4. But that's disappointing, and obviously something amiss with the sort of way that ACC grids up. Of course, we run races all the time here at RLM, and this isn't a normal problem that we have. So can pretty much conclusively say this is not something that we've done. It's just one of those gremlins in the code, I would assume. Something that it's hard to plan for with a grid of this size. Yes, George?
I'm just scared that NSX does leap its way back onto the grid side and interfere with a couple more cars. You see, it's obviously not able to just stay in the pit lane, so something going drastically wrong there. Hopefully the pit wall will keep the NSX at bay. Has 2 minutes to go. We just have a countdown. We have to get onto the drive. Hopefully we don't have any more issues going into this, but a very strange one indeed. I haven't seen something like this.
No, I certainly haven't either, and it's we're making light of the situation. It's sort of humorous, but for those that are having their race impacted by this, my heart goes out to you. It's a Friday night. You want to have a great race, and we understand that. We want to provide you a great race, and it's not exactly what they would want, but there is a race, and I have been given a note that says the race can go on regardless of the incident. It's not something that we can fix. It's not on our end, so it's not something that we can do, but our apologies anyway to the teams affected in both splits. But man, it's going to be a great race, though. That's not going to detract from the fact that once we get these 35-plus cars going, it's going to be an incredible drive from all of these guys. Of course, I'm going to stick with Wolf Matushka as my pick to win this race. I don't think starting in second, third, fourth, I don't think it matters to the number 25 Audi. I think they're going to take it all. Your prediction, George Smith?
I'm going to stay with the number 126, the Orion Race team for now. Porsche going to win into my slight bias for what I believe is a good BOP for Kyalami. And of course, the lap times coming out, they're getting into the 138s for the quali laps. I'm excited to see what race pace comes out. I think that the opening lap is going to be critical. I think that having said that, the race start here really does define what you're going to do. I mean, if something goes completely wrong, and you misjudge a corner and you send it off, that's a complete race over for you. So it's going to be a controlled start. It's going to be a rush down to T2, because of course at Kyalami, T1 is the kink, which is down the start-finish straight. So T2, Crowthorne is going to be where all the action happens, and I'm excited to see if Fornaserio, can you guys help me with this name that I cannot say?
Fornaserio.
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 It's Siero, Sierra. So Fornaserio.
No, but Ryan, when I see just letters, my mind doesn't do it like you do it. So
that is very true.
Yeah, it kind of just merges them all together, and out comes the South African's terrible pronunciation of European names. I mean, any world name that's not here in South Africa. I'm good at Zulu. If you give me a Zulu one, but for now, yeah, I think that inside line for the number 117 is going to be quite interesting, and it's going to be up to Egger to not let this pole go to waste.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are officially on the pace lap. The race director says the race will go on ahead despite some of the technical gremlins that are happening in sim. So we are going to bring you 2 hours of racing here. Just to recap a couple of things. Every driver has a co-driver in this race. That is what the amber number 1 means on the scoring pylon. That means that they have to come in and do a mandatory pit stop and meet the requirements of that mandatory pit stop. And there is a maximum drive time for the drivers they must not exceed, otherwise they will get a post-race penalty applied by the sim. And so this is a very much a team sport here today. It's lovely to have you guys with us here in split 1 of the RLM Endurance Cup. This is the 3rd of 6 rounds here at Kyalami. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to personally hand you over to the South African man himself for the singing of the South African national anthem.
Am I legitimately singing the South African national anthem to you guys? Have you heard it before?
Oh, we heard it in the pre-race discussion, but obviously we weren't 100% sure if you wanted to go through with it, George. But it's completely up to you. Although if you are going to do it, you're going to have to be very quick.
Africa, Manuka Panisu Punduwayo. Yisamendi tandaza yetu nkosi sikalela tina losapawayo murobakanu bokasapa sayasu. I don't know the rest of this part, I must be honest.
Thank you very much, George Smith, for the South African national anthem. You did
that was lovely.
You did it much better than Jesse and I could have done. So do not concern yourself with how bad it may or may not have been. But
there are other parts that I am better at, but we're getting into the race start.
Ladies and gentlemen at home, do tune in 2 weeks' time for the 4th round of this, where Ryan sings the British national anthem. But we are getting ready to go here. They are 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, as far as the eye can see. 35+ cars here at Kyalami for Split 1 Endurance. They are lined up. The green flags by the marshals are waving. The cars are fanning out, and they're heading down into Turn 1, serenaded by George Smith and the lovely South African national anthem that has a lovely tune to it. Porsches are side by side going into the first turn. They couldn't possibly be any closer. Might there have been a touch? I dare not say myself. I do see Phil Vitt in the number 25 Muka Motorsport car in 3rd place now, as there is some contact in the back there with the Bentley. Contact sent the Bentley slightly wide there, but no harm, no foul really. They are side by side for it, and it looks like that is Wolf Matuszka. That is not Phil Vitt in the car yet, as the scoring has updated. Matuszka all over the back of Egger. Egger, of course, is right on the back of Fonacerio as well. This is going to be a hotly contested race. I do not see this battle going away, guys.
Yeah, just
Fonacerio.
Sorry, George, just to cut in there, it was Jaroslav Honzik that actually had a bit of a collision with Burgess in the BMW, and Jaroslav Honzik has lost out as a result of that. He's down into 13th, unfortunately. So a silver class car and a pro class car colliding on the first lap. That will be reviewed by our live stewarding team today, which of course are here to review all incidents going in and around the track. But on to you, George.
Yeah, so Fonacerio doing exactly what he needed to do into T1, starting on that inside line, gets ahead of Egger, and now will lead the opening lap here at Kyalami in 1st place. Egger going to be chasing down in 2nd as they go through Engwe, with Matuszka chasing down in 3rd in that pink Audi in the background. And of course, Strello is going to be hunting this little 3-way pack down in 4th. He's got a little train himself that he's forming up. But the front battle between these 2 Porsches and an Audi, these 3 cars are going to keep each other at bay and keep each other honest. Of course, Matuszka here will want Egger to try and get as much pressure onto that number 117 in front. And he's going to wait and bide his time patiently waiting to see where he can get a move done. It's a difficult place to get things done as they go through Sunset now. Pretty much the wrong name of the corner as we are here at sunrise, 5 o'clock in the morning in South Africa. Beautiful sunrise at Kyalami going through Clubhouse. No battles between these three just yet, as it looks like Fornaserio just seems to have a couple of car links onto Ega, which is giving him that breathing room. And Matushka not quite on the back of Ega as they come up to Leocorp to have a look. Of course, it's a difficult corner coming up to there. Fabian Schmidberger in the number 52, currently running in 11th. He's got 0, putting pressure, looking on the inside, not going to be able to do it as Fabian shuts the door in his face. Carries on going around as they make their way down to the mine shaft. Commentators curse Aston Martin, going to be looking to try and take a position off the Ferrari of Muthen in 10th place there, but a good start coming out from Schmidberger here.
Yeah, as we go back to the battle for the lead, because it's very much that. These three cars chained at the hip, as I would say. They're not going anywhere. I feel like Egger might be a little quicker than Fornaserio, and I feel like Matushka might just be biding his time here. No sense being as close as you possibly can, but again, it's a 2-hour race, and you're less than 4 minutes into it. Now is not the time to make a mistake. I mean, there's never really a time you want to make a mistake, but right now in particular, you don't want to make mistakes. And to touch on something Ryan mentioned at the start of the race, we do have live stewarding for every one of these races in the Endurance Championship, and we have a race director as well. Penalties will be given out live as they are reported, so that is in line here today. So you will see, and we will inevitably be talking about some of the penalties given. In case you're wondering why certain drivers were given penalties, we will most likely be able to provide you with that information as the snake continues. Look at the Bentley. Look at the 172. Look at Burgess get sideways in that Bentley. I'm starting to think maybe he wasn't touched earlier on the first lap. Maybe that car is just set up so loose that it gets completely out of sorts. And when your car is literally a battleship meant for the water, it looks crazy when it gets sideways, but such a lovely color. I must admit, I'm a fan of that color on that car. They're doing an incredible job. A lot of these teams are, to get away here today. And as you see flashing in front of you, still the battle for the top 3 is still going on. It looks like Ray Strello has gotten through there was 3 cars or so in the silver class. There was from 4th, 5th, and 6th. Looks like Ray Strello has gotten through there. And just as that occurs, the number 52 Commentators Curse team has moved back into the top 10. They have 3 silver, or excuse me, I need to correct myself. They have 2 Silver Cup drivers. Keep in mind, that's the hardest passes to make. Those are passes on cars that are obviously quick, otherwise they wouldn't be there, but you don't get points or position for it. It's all risk and no reward, so you try to do it as quickly as possible, or as safely as possible, I should say. Look at this logjam. This is Jardier Hansik. Ryan pointed and alluded to earlier that he had a bit of an altercation at the start of the race that put this team on the back foot. This is, of course, a pro car that qualified well up inside the top 5, and they've been demoted all the way down to 13th, and now they've moved up to 12th. They've moved past Samuel Ratz, but they are in a literal log jam at the moment. This is incredible stuff that we're seeing. I as much as I hate to see Jardier struggle, I love to see Jardier finish or run strong and well. I love a recovery drive from the number 49 team, because they do it about as good as anybody else. As Samuel Ratz thinks about an inside move, but then again thinks better of it and decides to fall back into line. Ryan, crazy first few laps.
Yeah, definitely so, and like you said before, if anyone's capable of a comeback drive, it's going to be Jaroslav Honzik, or Jardier as he's more commonly known. Samuel Ratz as well, the 192 Racing Line Motorsport Ferrari, did quite well out at Spa and Monza. That car well down where we'd expect it to be usually, so not entirely sure what happened to them. We'll have to have a review of where they qualified later on in the race. But looking up towards the front of the field at the moment, it's still close between the 2 Porsches.
Fornaserio and Ega are going to really try and get themselves away from Matushka in that Audi, but Matushka not going to allow them to escape that easily. They really are setting themselves up to get themselves away from the battles of the rest of the pack behind them. I mean, the three cars, considering they're only on their fourth lap now, you don't even see another car in shot really as they go through Clubhouse. And Fornaserio is really just mustering around in that Porsche. I do want to note that, when it comes down to these kind of situations, it is so difficult to maintain a race pace like this where you've got the pressure of everybody else. You can't slack off at all. You don't have any breathing room to even make a mistake. And with 2 hours of racing, you've got pit stops to do, driver swaps still to take place. There is so much racing on the cards, and considering we've only been racing for what is almost just 8 minutes, we've already had such a deal on our hands. I see Burgess on the timing sheet is going to be given a drive-through penalty there on the log. I'm not sure if that's from any of the race stewards or if that is from
I can inform you, George, that is indeed from race control. The stewards have decided that Burgess is responsible for the collision that he had with Jaroslav Honzik on the first lap. Of course, that's the incident at turn 4, which meant that Jardia is currently down in 12th place. I did say that there was probably going to be an investigation into that, and it has been investigated. Burgess has been found to be at fault, and he is immediately serving that drive-through penalty to get out of the way as quick as possible.
Yeah, that's a smart move, isn't it, Ryan, to go ahead and get into pit road and serve that penalty, get on with your race, whether he agrees with the penalty or not. And by the fact that he came in immediately, I feel like he feels somewhat responsible for that at least. I'm just guessing, of course. But, get in the pits, no shame in it. Get out and get on with the race. It is an hour and 50 minutes left, lad. That team can rebound and should be just fine, though it will take them out of the action for a moment. We follow Reg Strello from Lappin Party 69 here. They are under fire from Osi Takamaki here. That is a pro on a silver, or silver on a pro driver, I should say. I always get that backwards in my head for some reason. But Osi wants by him. Takamaki wants this position. He's going to go to the extreme outside. That's not how you get by in this corner, lad, and he knows that. The Japanese driver will follow back in line and in suit. But that battle there is persisting. Reg, of course, got by all the Silver Cup drivers that were in front of him earlier, as I mentioned, but now Takamaki is back on him and giving him one heck of a fight. Meanwhile, Fonaserio has got a bit of a lead now. It's 8/10. It's not the safest lead in the world for sure. But Wolf Matushka still has not given up his pursuit of Egger, but we'll keep you posted on that as well. But this is the most interesting battle at the moment because they are all over each other. And you guys know as soon or as well as I do, as soon as Takamaki makes a move on Strello, Chiza and Jaitvin are going to be right there on them as well. As we go back to 10th place, this is the 249 car. There's almost contact there. Jardier getting every single bit he can. That is pro strats right there, ladies and gentlemen. Getting as close as you possibly can to somebody, trying to take their line away, trying to psych them out, trying to get the best run, shade somebody over to a corner. That is just digging. He is digging. He wants that top 10. He wants to be in the lead of this race, obviously, which I'm not saying is out of the question, honestly, if they rebound well enough. And of course, the number 52 commentators curse team, who's in front of this driving away, that's great for them in 9th place. Said that they, just to reiterate what I said earlier about them, they told me yesterday they weren't the most confident team in the world coming to Kyalami, but they had reason to believe that they would underperform or perform a little worse than they had been doing, and I told them that was all a bit of rubbish, as Jardier attempting again to go around the outside. He is not afraid to try that move, and now he tries to cut it up the inside. Car gets a little squirrely. They're in line, and a good thing that Jardier got in line because Samuel Ratz is right behind him. Samuel Ratz is looking for a way around Jardier. This car in front of him, Cartusi, is holding them up, I would assume at this point, but he's doing a really good job of being just quick enough in the right places to kind of gap them exactly on cue, what I'm talking about right there. And that's keeping these two Ferraris behind them. in check for the moment. We have very interesting mix, honestly. 5th place is a silver driver. That's Takamaki. And in 10th place, of course, the car that we are following here, this is Cartusi. He is the first AM driver we talked about. Ryan did, in fact, talk about after qualifying, the first qualifying we did, how odd it was that we didn't have an AM driver up in the top 10. I know some of you at home may think that that's weird to hear, but it's not for this series. We typically have about one AM driver that hovers around the top 10, and here we are after second qualifying. Order, in our case it's order anyway, has been restored.
Yeah, I was just about to say that if cars had teeth, well, my word, that Ferrari of Jardia's is nibbling on the back of that Aston Martin. And I would not be too surprised if, going back and looking at the replays of this race, if there are quite literal micrometers between these two cars at some point. But Jardia not quite finding the pace to get through at the moment. Of course, the AM driver is in a different class, but he is not obligated to give up the position. It's very important that we make that clear. They are in a different class, but they do not have to just move over as if it's a Formula 1 blue flag scenario. And as long as he is quick enough and as long as he doesn't defend in a dangerous manner, he is more than entitled to hold that place.
Kartachi, I mean, he's doing such a good job in making sure that Jardia just can't get by, and you see Jardia trying those wide lines at the top of Leeuwkop, which, you know, ironically there is a second wide line that you can get at the top of Leeuwkop where you can get a good run and get the inside coming down to Mineshaft. So I think that's what Jardia is trying to explore at the moment, because Kartachi just keeps putting his Aston Martin right on that inside apex, and there really aren't good passing opportunities if you are putting your car in those defensive positions. At anything, the car following you has to yield and is causing themselves to lose out on time. So right now doing all the work, and Samuel Ratz is just hanging onto the back of Jardia and causing him to continue to battle. Up at the front though, the Porsche battle has not ceased fire just yet, and the white and red Apex Racing team number 117 continues to lead the way up to Leeuwkop here, as Egger trying to get something done for Ryan and gonna hug the inside curb and try and see if he can squeeze a little bit less line coming down, and it's not going to be enough just yet. Interesting battle at the front between the Porsches. You see Matuszka kind of dropping off from the two of them now. It was kind of evident when we switched to them earlier that he was losing a little bit of pace to the two of them, but, you know, still in these shots of the cars, anything can happen between these two, and Matuszka will be right back up there. I really must just touch on the fact that I love that ACC re-added the sparks from other cars as they clip the asphalt. I love seeing those sparks clicking up. I completely missed them on, you know, the previous updates, and I feel like those were missing and they're back now somehow.
Yeah, and I kind of get the feeling that we're almost replicating one of the real-world scenarios that the Kyalami 9 Hour had here. If anyone at home did watch the Kyalami 9 Hour last year in... I think it was in November, wasn't it, George?
Yeah.
It was a fantastic race. You might actually remember that there was a point going up to Leeuwkop. I think I said that correctly. That there was actually two Porsches that crashed into each other. So maybe Wolf Matuszka's looking at this and thinking, well, if they want to push hard right now in the first 15 minutes of the race, he said, you know, maybe I'll back off a bit, maybe I'll bide my time, see what's going to happen. And if these two come together, Wolf Matuszka in the perfect spot to avoid an accident and reap the benefits. But looking at it now, it seems that Egger has backed off slightly. Maybe a mistake involved there.
Yeah, it certainly can be. Just a couple of updates, ladies and gentlemen. The 248 was given just a warning by the stewards for unsafe driving. You don't want to run afoul of that. Of course, that was just a warning. But most recently, the 352 car given a drive-through penalty for causing multiple contacts going through the S's that led to a spin. So that car's been given a drive-through, and I believe that's the car you see on the timing and scoring there that has that DT. So if you're ever wondering what Chukhanov got the DT for, is for causing multiple collisions and a spin through the S's. I think they mean through Crocodile? I'm not sure. or not crocodile, through Cheetah, and I am going to at some point today, guys. I'm gonna mess up and call Cheetah Cheeto. It's just going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
The Jess, are you not referring to the S's at the top of the track?
Oh, actually, that might be, George. You absolutely are correct. I forgot all about that, and that might be correct. My apologies to the stewarding team. They know more about what they're talking about than I do. Maybe they should be here instead. But we're watching Eko Scheitman get into a fight here with, I believe that's Chisa, isn't it? That's got to be Chisa. That can't be anybody else, and that pass has been made. So that's quite lovely for David Chisa, who has made the pass and is one step closer to being with the rest of his class at the front. All he's got to do now is chase down Taka Maki, who has settled into the 5th place position. He's fallen off of the back of Strello at the moment. And guys, earlier you guys were talking about the battle between the two Porsches up front and trying to commentators curse them, by the way, which I wasn't doing, everybody at home, but the 49 and the 192 that are, no, excuse me, not those two cars, but the two leading Porsches, they were incredibly close, which was interesting. It leads me to believe that Bonasario had something happen to his lap, or one of his laps earlier, because he was pulling out a gap, and then all of a sudden it was right close again, and now the gap, of course, going back to 8 tenths plus. As we look at Matty Batcher here in the 1, 2, 3 car, this is I believe this is the 3rd or 4th place, I believe this is going to be 4th place AM car.
That is correct.
Yes, this is fantastic to see some of these cars that are sort of more in the pack, and love the silver and gold. I can't help but enjoy that sort of thing. I don't know why. I like chrome. It might be the American in me, but he's under a fight from Jork and Marcy. Or Macri, I should say, if I ever learn how to speak names. But of course, he has Roschek in front of him. So this is a massive fight going on between some of the AM and the silver drivers here. And as Ryan alluded to earlier, they're not racing each other for points, but they are racing each other for overall position, and you are in fact allowed to do that. There is no blue flag move over situation here if you are fighting for position regardless of what class that you're in. And I think that's brilliant, because we get to see battles all up and down the field exactly like this.
Yeah, and of course it doesn't make a difference to your championship. We've already established this, that finishing ahead of a pro car doesn't mean you're going to get more points in your class. The only thing that matters is the cars in your class, for example. So, finishing higher up the overall leaderboard doesn't gain you any additional points. However, what it does give you is an incredibly good sense of pride, knowing that, you've finished above people that may be higher in your class, and, that can give you some good feelings, some good confidence. And, some people really, really do need that at times. I've spoken to a couple of drivers. As we've just seen a collision there between the two AM drivers competing for a podium. The 88 of Roschek and the 123 of Bakar. Now, Bakar was responsible for that incident, little dive up the inside into Leukop, collided with the Mercedes. He has given up the position to say, you know what, that was my bad, fair enough, you can have the place back, I'm going to have a go at it again, and he has actually lost out a couple of places because of that. But considering the fact he gave the position back so quickly, I think the stewards might be keen to let him get away with that one.
Yeah, that's also something too, Ryan. You're absolutely right. The stewards do look that sort of thing in a better light. Like if you have an incident, or you spin somebody, or you have spin somebody, and you sort of give the position back up, or you yield to them, they do look at that in a better light. Not saying that you're not going to get a penalty because of it, but it is possible that they will kind of shade you in a better light as opposed to just driving off. Bad news for the 969 car. That's Christian Wheel behind the behind the driver's seat of that Porsche, they've been given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision as well. So that particular team, they have not had the start of the race that they wanted. They're going to have to get back on the horse here and make up some positions on the track, which I'm sure that team with Wheel can absolutely do, but still not exactly what you wanted, but that is what live stewarding is for. As we go back to Samuel Ratz now. Samuel Ratz he's actually sort of settled in here behind the number 52 car. Of course, that's Jardier right behind him. And of course, Jardier still trying to crack. He was in the top 10. I believe Ratz has passed Jardier at some point. I believe that happened some amount of laps ago. But if you look behind, that is just a train of cars from about 10th on down to 14th. Look at all those cars. Of course, that's commentator's curse number 52 in front, but they are the ones that are in the catbird seat. They have the lead of this pack, and they're not the ones currently being hounded. As you see, Jardier tightens up on the back of Ratz now. Ratz having to sort of go defensive for the moment, having to think about the race sort of in 4 dimensions, and I know that's not true, but that's just something I say. But you have to worry about what's in front of you, hitting your apexes, and being defensive. Kind of mirror driving, I think, is what the proper term would be, Ryan.
Yeah, for sure, and I think what's probably happened, looking at the way everything is materialised, I think Jardier, because Jardier and Ratz were both stuck behind Cartocci. So I think what's probably happened is that Jardier's managed to get through. Samuel Ratz has probably followed him on through, and then Ratz has got past Jardier at some point. Obviously, we unfortunately missed that. What this does mean is that Fabian Schroberger in the 52 commentators curse Aston Martin now has the Racing Line Motorsport and the Red Line Motorsport Esports Ferraris behind him, chasing him down. So lots of pressure there on Fabian Schroberger, and he will be handing the car over to Jake Boswell later on in the race. I believe Samuel Ratz will be handing the car. Is he handing it over to Kevin Siclari? I think it is. It might be Kevin Siclari, and Jardier will be handing over to Samir Ibrahimi.
I always said that that's like a team that I would love to just be the crew chief of and rack up wins. Talking about Jardier and Samir Ibrahimi, it's like that's a license to print money. It's a license to print wins, having that sort of team together. And lovely to have them, lovely to see them compete here in this championship. Of course, all these guys and gals here today doing it for the love of racing, and that's what we're here for as well. And we're happy to have you with us. Just want to say personally from RLM, thank you for all of the follows and all the subscriptions and everything that you guys do for us here on Twitch. And if you're watching this on a VOD on YouTube, why not go ahead and hit like and subscribe? We would love to have you not miss any action that we put up, because we race pretty much every week. I mean, several times a week. It's a busy time of the year for us. We've got several championships on. But of course, if you are on Twitch and would like to support us further, if you have Twitch Prime, you can subscribe to RLM for free, and that helps us with all sorts of things like server cost and upkeep and all that stuff. Any sort of thing like that would be greatly appreciated. But most importantly, thank you for your following and your watching today. We hope that you're having a fun time with us. We're certainly having a fun time. And guys, if I don't mention Chumley in the 720, I think the fans of that car are going to go nuts. We have several of them in the chat. We haven't talked about Chumley, and especially since we've learned how to say his name in the past 2 weeks. I just want to give a shout out to the 720 Lexus. That is Chumley, and to all his fans in chat. And we see you. I see you. And we love seeing him race. He hasn't had the best of starts so far. He's sort of down the order in the silver class, but certainly we know what him and his team is capable of, George.
Yeah, you are right there, and correct. We have corrected the pronunciation of Chumley's name. That was very much thanks to Ryan, of course. And although the meme will never be forgotten, and the incorrect pronunciation gets rubbed into my face almost on a daily basis by Ryan. So, I'm glad to see that Chumley's still here. Sad to see that he has had something that's dropped him down to 19th. Maybe some of his fans could give some insight into what happened to him there. Obviously, we didn't see it on the live stream here, but would be interesting to see if any of them have some insight for us to fill us in on some of the details. It's impossible to keep track of all the cars on track all the time, and sometimes you do rely on some of these guys and their fans to come through and give a little bit of insight into what's gone on.
I gotta be honest, George, I've got 4 monitors up at the moment. I've got the Twitch chat on my phone. I've got all sorts of stuff going on at the moment to keep track of this race, and I'm still losing control of what's going on where. I'm looking all over the place. We're watching the lead battle at the moment between Fornasera and Egger. Wolf Patushka has dropped off the back of these guys significantly, 5.3 seconds. Not sure if that's down to a mistake or whether Wolf has just decided that, you know what, he wants some nice clear air, so he's decided to park the car, go have a coffee, and restart it. Looking what else is going on around the field, Takamaki still leading the silver class. He's got David Chiesa between him and Gietvan in the 312 Bentley, so things looking good there for the 43 Audi, which had a pretty bad race out at Spa, so they're looking to fight back strong. But big news, the 248 Aston Martin, the leader of AM class, has got a drive-through penalty. Jesse Lee, Can you give us an update? Is that a stewarding call, or is it track limits?
Well, I can indeed, Ryan, and it is very much a stewarding call. The 248, as you guys may mention or may remember earlier, was giving a warning for unsafe driving. They've now been issued a second warning and a drive-through penalty for unsafe and overly aggressive driving, and they were also told to be aware of other cars around you on the racetrack in addition to the penalty for the 248. Also, you may notice the number 88 has been given a 20-second stop and go for the first lap incident with the cars 196, 96, and 969. That's not confusing at all. But the car 88 was given a 20-second stop and go for that. That was on the first lap of the race, and that adjudication finally came down. But yes, again, the 248 was given a second warning in the drive-through penalty, and that pretty much clears out the penalties. It's been sort of light, honestly, for penalties. We've seen certainly worse, but of course, the live stewards, the live stewarding of this series for the entirety of the series, love having those guys. They're actually in the box right beside us. I can see them. I can wave at them, actually. Hello, Mike Jones. Hello, Steven. Hello, Nick. You can actually look at. I can't see Tom Roberts, though. Tom Roberts is the acting director of this race. He's the one that hears all the complaints. I can't see him. He's on the other side, sitting with Emperor Palpatine, I'm pretty sure. But neither way, we have side-by-side action on the track. And let's see. This is Jaivin. Jaivin's trying to get in front of Chissa. This battle, which I thought was done and dusted 5 laps ago, is not done and dusted, and it's still happening on the track as the big Bentley goes around the inside and just about gets clear to Chissa, but doesn't actually, as he's going to have the correct line out of the corner there and gets back in front of him, and that was all for naught, as it turns out. He's going to have to do it again, and oh my goodness, Jaivin hits a curb and goes a bit deep into the apex, and then gets into the dirt ever so slightly, and that cools that battle off quite nicely, George Smith.
Yeah, fantastic bit of driving coming out from both drivers. The Bentley and the Porsche both giving themselves ample room coming out of Crowthorne through the Yuxke sweep, through Barbecue as well, through Sunset side by side, and then through Clubhouse. A tiny little touch, and that's going to put things on ice. But up until that point, just a great bit of driving coming out from both. Good respect being shown to one another, and a great bit of on-track battle as we switch back to the view of Jardier chasing down onto the back of Fabian Schmidberger, that number 52 commentator's curse. Aston Martin now being hunted down. Rat seems to have done the work already in the Ferrari, so it's a bit of a Ferrari sandwich here for Fabian Schmidberger in that Aston Martin as they make their way down at the start-finish straight. Jardier wanting to capitalize on as much slipstream as possible, so we'll continue until he can get a little bit closer and get some work done. We must just say that I do believe that the Ferraris here do struggle in terms of BOP. I don't feel like it is a car that you would pick in a horse race to win here. So to say that these are easy to drive around and be on pace with the rest of the guys would be a complete lie. And you can definitely see that the pace from Rats and Jardier here is not on par with where you would normally see them in a lobby. But for now, doing the best that they can and trying to get some work done. Fabian going to be holding on to that 10th position, not wanting to give it up. A bit of a playground battle going to go down, and hopefully it will be clean through the wire. Of course, both drivers here known to be clean drivers, so I'm excited to see when we do get to that eventuality, as we have seen Jardier closing down on the sector times as well as lap times. It will be defensive for Schmidberger through the top of Leocorp. He secures the inside line and is going to make Jardier well aware that he intends to fight for this position.
Yeah, and of course Fabian has every right to fight for the position as well, because they are both pro-class drivers, and this would obviously be for position. I think Fabian as well, I think he knows that Jardier is definitely quicker than him. Maybe it would be a good idea, as we just see Jardier going a bit wide on the exit of Cheetah, and that could have ended very, very badly for him. But he does well to recover it. Just something quickly on your note about the Ferraris around here, George. They definitely do struggle compared to some of the stronger cars around here, the Porsche, the Audi, and some of the other popular manufacturers like Aston Martin as well. It's definitely a car that, myself as someone who is definitely not as quick as people like Jardier or Samir Ibrahimi, but I have definitely struggled in the Ferrari around here, and it's a car I've got plenty of experience in within ACC, so I tend to think I know my way around the car pretty well. But yeah, it definitely does struggle around here compared to some of the other cars, but in the right hands, which at the moment in the hands of Jardier and Samuel Ratz, and then obviously later handing over to Samir Ibrahimi for the number 49 car, and I will correct myself, Samuel Ratz is sharing the car with Jan Onorati, not Kevin Scolari, so we'll have that mistake corrected. But looking back at the timing board at the moment, seems to be 4/10 between the two Porsches at the top of the table at the moment. Wolf Matuszka dropping back significantly now, almost 7 seconds back. So Wolf Matuszka does not have the pace to stay with the Porsches at the front.
Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic, because we can see that they are right on top of each other, and that is pretty, we saw the gap, ladies and gentlemen, go out at one point in this race. It has all come back together, and I'm just going to take a brief moment to apologize if you can hear the thunder, the lightning, and the rain going on in my background, which I'm not sure how much of that's coming through the mic. It is because there is a massive thunderstorm happening where I am in the world, so my apologies if you can hear that. It actually just quietened down a little bit. But this battle here has went away and reignited and went away and reignited several times in this race, and this is just the new iteration. This might as well be Star Wars as owned by Disney, because we're telling the same story a third time in this race, because the 117, this is Fonacerio, he drove away from Egger twice and only to get caught back up again, and we're not looking at it, so I'm unsure if it's Fonacerio making a mistake, like a minor mistake, or Egger just occasionally finds the ultimate line or the ultimate lap, a power lap, if you will, around the circuit. I'm unsure which one of those it is. But it's really nice. We're what, 35 minutes into a race. These guys are pretty much nose to tail. This is how they ended lap 1, and they're still here. And as Ryan alluded to earlier, Matuszka has fallen back to some 7 seconds off the pace of the top guys. But while that's going on, and while I'm giving shout outs to people, I want to give out a shout out to Mark Whitford. They're in the 777 car. They're currently 3rd in the silver class. I always talk about his teammate. We all do. We talk about his teammate, Sebastian Brunier. We talk about him. We don't talk about Mark Whitford, who streams on Twitch. He's under the name Fez Fox. That's how you guys most certainly know him. But I noticed something. I never got to talk about Mark Whitford and the 777 team, but there we are. Hello to you, Mr. Fez Fox. I've known him for years, and nice to see that they're on the podium. They always thought that they could not only finish on the podium in silver, but they could win one of these races. So it's nice to see that that is coming to plan for them. And of course, we are sticking with the Fonacerio Egger battle because they could not be any tighter together if they were glued together. This has been fantastic to see from them, really. I mean, you think about it. Oh, it's two Porsches. They're on the same track. Of course, they're going the same speed. Well, folks, of course, it isn't that simple. It's two different human people at the controls of these cars, and they are putting on one heck of a show for us today. And quite frankly, George Smith, I can't pick a winner between these two. They've been so evenly matched.
But to be honest, JC, you're 100% right. It's all going to come down to what Egger's doing in that second place position. I feel he's going to be trying to get Fonacerio to be trying to extend on those track limits, get himself a drive-through penalty. That's the kind of pressure that you have to put on, and if you can't get away past, that's what you have to do at Kyalami. You need to just keep that pressure at the back and keep on forcing them into errors. And for now, it doesn't look like Fonacerio is going to yield. Egger was struggling when he had Matushka to battle with in third, but after getting away from them, the two Porsches have just kept the little scrap up together. As we switch back to the view of Samuel Ratz, and in the background we see Whitford, Schmidberger and Honzik. So obviously Ratz getting the move done onto Whitford just before the closing Ingwe corner. And Ratz now up into 8th place. Whitford in 9th, Schmidberger in 10th, and Jardia in 10th. So a nice little train, all in position, all racing on track, making their way through the Yuxke sweep as Samuel Ratz departs from Barbecue as well. And Samuel Ratz does seem to be finding a little bit more pace out of the Ferrari. And that's what you would tend to see with drivers of this skill caliber. Even if it's a slightly weaker BOP'd car, they can still find the limits and still keep pushing and finding faster lap times as they go. Schmidberger going to have a look on the inside there through Clubhouse. Is going to go side by side as they make their way towards the S's. Schmidberger is past. Gets the move done onto Whitford before they even have to go through the dancey section of the S's. And Schmidberger goes up into 9th. And Jardia now, knowing that Whitford has lost 2 positions within the last lap, is going to be wanting to do the same. And on the inside of Leeuwkoop, Jardia will slide on by as well. Whitford doing the smart thing. Doesn't want to be caught up. We'll see a little replay here of Jardia going up the inside, the top of Leeuwkoop, and Whitford trying to settle back and just accept the position here between the 3 fellow cars that have just taken positions off of him as they come up to some blue flag races at Cheetah, which is not a place that you want to go through and try and find positions. But we'll see the blue flag cars getting on the brakes before Ingwe and doing the right thing and allowing these front markers to get on by.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that I think Whitford probably giving up the place to Jardia fairly easily there. He was going quite wide into Leeuwkoop, and I think it makes sense. I mean, Jardia being a pro class car and Whitford being a silver class, Whitford doesn't really have any reason to fight him. Of course, he doesn't have to move out the way, but deciding that maybe it is better to move out of the way of a charging Jardia. Interesting though, Jardia's still not past Fabian Schmidberger. Fabian is doing an absolutely incredible job right now of keeping Jardia behind. He's had him behind him for at least the last 15 minutes, and well, that lovely purple Aston Martin going well here at Kyalami, at a track that you, Jesse Lee, said yourself earlier today they weren't confident coming into this race, but they're doing quite well at the moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that was sort of, I had an impromptu meeting with them yesterday or the day before, and I just, what I do, folks, if you're a driver in RLM, don't allow me to have a conversation with you. I will use it against you in a race, but I asked them where their confidence level was after 2 races, and they go, well, we're fairly confident. We're pretty happy with our team. And I was like, so where are you at with Kyalami in comparison to the first 2 races? And they didn't say anything. And I was like, oh, is it that bad? They're like, well, not so much confidence as it was at Spa, but they know what they have and they're going really well. And we have the Jardier faithful in the chat today as this battle continues for the top step of the race. And they are fighting lap traffic at this point. You knew it was inevitable at some point that you would get into lap traffic, but that just adds another element to this. These are cars that have either had some sort of issue, meaning they've had a drive-through penalty. I certainly believe that is the case with the green Porsche in front, and now that they are on the back foot, and now they're being shown blue flags. So that's going to be something for Fonasario to have to manage, and Egger can potentially make out like a bandit in this situation. But we have the Jardier, as I was saying earlier. Oh, a little bit of a punt, and a Ferrari goes a bit wide. That will be in the gravel there. Those were the back marking cars. Ferrari seems to have gathered it up, lost a position there, I do believe, or so, but has gathered it back up and onto the track. Be interesting to see what the stewards might have to say about that one. But anyway, my point about Jardier is we have the faithful of Jardier, his loyal fan base, in chat today. Hello, everyone, by the way. And they're saying that based on the first lap incident, which was the offending car was given a drive-through penalty. You saw some confusion about that earlier. Let me just clear it up. That car was, in fact, given a drive-through penalty for his actions on the Jardier car. But they say that he's carrying some significant damage that is probably slowing him down by about half a second a lap, which all of that is good news if you are the driver of the number 52 commentator's curse, Barney the Dinosaur Aston Martin, because, well, that means that he's a bit hampered in that regard. It'd be interesting to see once driver changes occur, which might be coming up sooner rather than later. I think a lot of these teams are going to split the race in half. Some may go for an undercut. An undercut in Monza made that race incredibly interesting, so we'll have to pay attention to that. This battle, though, for the front has not cooled off one bit. In fact, it is heating up. It's intensifying. Neither driver willing to make a bigger mistake. Neither driver willing to give in. And this is exactly what you come to expect here from RLM. This is exactly what I expect here. My first race I ever commentated here was almost identical to this. Two cars chasing each other around for several hours. Absolutely amazing stuff. Well done to Kunos for some of the BOP, the tracks and everything. It's just so wonderful in that regard. And you get to see racing like this. Every single one of the top 23 drivers still require a mandatory pit stop here today. That's what the amber colored number 1 on the scoring pylon means. That means that is a mandatory pit stop. Once they satisfy the mandatory pit stop requirements, that will turn green. They are not required to come back in again for the rest of the race. A white placard behind the number of the car tier driver. Silver means that they are silver or pro-am, and red, of course, means that is a AM class car. Just to catch you guys up with that a little bit in case you weren't with us when we started or haven't seen the first 2 races. And by the way, if you haven't seen the first 2 races, what in the world is wrong with you? Go to YouTube, go to RLM's YouTube, and watch the first 2 race VODs. They were absolutely brilliant races. But for the next hour and 15 minutes, let's just say you stick with us because, guys, they want to know, the people at home, and I want to know who's going to win this race, and I'm going to rely on George Smith to tell me which one of these 2 cars is going to win right now. George Smith.
Without having to, pick a winner, Egger is going to obviously make a pit swap, so I can't choose which driver will win at the end of the day. So I kind of avoid the question, right, by not having to pick a winner at this stage of the race. But I mean, that number 117, Fonasario, for the Apex Racing team, has just had such an incredible race up at the front. It's not easy to lead a race. People think that once you're up front, that's, it's all done and dusted. It's not easy to lead. When you have a big gap, obviously it's hard to maintain focus and things like that. But when you've got constant pressure, like Egger's putting onto the back of Fonasario here, it is such a difficult thing to do, and to keep that in mind and do that for, a full hour here on the track, I'm pretty sure that the tires are going to be screaming in the next couple of minutes for them to, just ease off, take it a little bit easier. It's not an easy track for these guys to get moves done. And I just feel like, Ega has tried everything to try and put pressure onto Fonacerio, but has never quite been alongside or never been quite close enough for something to yield him that position. So he's kind of just settling back, waiting to see what happens. Maybe when they do their pit stops, things will change over. Things could go wrong in the pit stops too. I mean, you could by mistake select to change your brakes or something like that, and it just sends you all the way down in all those positions. Oh, a little bit of dancing going on before Clubhouse, but not going to be a place that Ega can get that move done. Yes is now, and Ega obviously having to lift to Clubhouse has cost himself a little bit of the run up to Leocorp. And, just chilling them out a little bit. Fonacerio will get a bit of breathing room. They're catching up to another bunch of back markers now. And Ego, of course, will be wanting to see if he can benefit off these slower cars that are, now going to get waved the blue flags. Maybe that's where he can close down the gap. There's plenty of cars on track. You're going to have to make space. And that's what you want to kind of do. Put yourself in the position to get something done if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, you've got to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time, and of course, traffic management being so important in any race, really, in which you have multiple classes or you will be coming up towards lapped cars. I think this is the 28th placed car at the moment, the 444 Ferrari. That is the one of Adrian Armulescu, and as we come up to turn 1, he is going to move out of the way of the two leading Porsches, so very well done there by the Ferrari to make sure that he's not interfering in this battle. But obviously it's so hard to move out of the way of, faster cars coming up behind you, especially when you're trying to focus on, all the cars around you that you're fighting for position with at the same time.
Yeah, this is a massive logjam, and I talked earlier about how the lap traffic could come into play here. Luckily, it hasn't so far. A lot of these guys have been incredibly well-mannered when it comes to these leaders, and including here, you saw that BMW just sort of give him the lane, and why wouldn't you? But it sounds like common sense to us, but we all have been sim racing. We all know that to some people, it isn't that easy, but all these guys are very much, in fact, minding their own business. I have been told that the 172 car has had a massive crash. That 172 car, of course, that's the RT93 Esports Black team. That's a Bentley Continental. I think that's the golden Bentley I referred to earlier that was driven by Burgess. Unsubstantiated, I'm unsure, but certainly they're not in the top 20 or so. And was told by chat that they had a massive accident. So I'm inclined to believe it, just relaying that information. That's good information from chat there. And unfortunate, if true, that has occurred to that team. But this battle here, guys, I have to think if this is what they have now, this is where they are, these top two Porsches, this is going to come down, this could come down to a late race move, a desperate move at that, or how well or when you decide to come into pit. Would you, Ryan Gill, try the undercut at this time if you are the leader, Fonacerio?
Ooh, I've got to be honest. I mean, at the moment, an undercut wouldn't really be the worst idea ever. You've got to look at the scenario that you're in at the moment. You've come across a massive train of traffic, essentially. I mean, even on this perspective right now, we can still see there's 4 cars in front of them, never mind any other cars that they're going to be. Oh, and actually, as we see, one of the back markers has collided with Fonacerio. Oh, no, and that is
could we possibly see a replay of that?
We're going to have to try and get it up here at the moment. Yes, 30 seconds will take us back far enough. That is incredibly unfortunate. That was a 76 Aston Martin of Brian DeBon in 25th place. You can see as we come up towards the corner, Fonacerio on the outside. Maybe DeBon just didn't realise he was there, or maybe he didn't realise it was a faster car coming, but no two ways about it. He's unfortunately taken the leader out, and I don't think it takes a genius to figure out that is definitely going to be looked at by the stewards, and I would imagine there's going to be a penalty coming someone's way.
Yeah, you don't need to be Nostradamus or a fortune teller to be able to telegraph that one, do you, Ryan? That was a massive mistake there by the 76, and it unfortunately has changed the complexion of this race. It changed the complexion of this race so much that Wolf Matuszka, who was 7+ seconds aloft of the second place car of Edgar at the time, has now moved his way into second place in the race. So that's how big of an off that was. It's just lucky that the 117 did not sit in the sand trap. Of course, this is the car that hit him, the 76. Tried to take the apex of the corner, unsure. We're not stewards. We'll let the stewards deal with it. But love the team name. I can't even speak. I love the team name, Broder Sport, with bro being capital. That's it's a very nice team name, but just a bit of a mistake there, perhaps, and I'm sure that'll come up in the penalty report. I can tell you the 969 car was given a warning for passing cars aggressively under blue flagged conditions. That was not a penalty, it was just a warning handed down by the stewards in that regard, and that's the only thing since the last time I talked to you about penalties that had occurred. But guys, certainly this has changed the complexion of the race. Wolf Matuszka now up to second place. Edgar now has a nearly 7-second lead. If you're Matuszka at this point, if you have anything left in the car, do you push now, knowing that it would be a one-on-one battle? Or, I mean, what is going through your head? You've been gifted second. Do you now attempt the undercut if you're Matuszka? You have to, right? You have to go for it.
I mean, well, I can tell you what I would do, Jesse, but I can tell you another thing, which is that Wolf Matuszka does not think the way I do. I can tell you right now that whatever way he's thinking about the quickest possible way to get to the end of this race, whether that is undercut or overcut, we will wait and see. Just think I wanted to alert you guys on Rake Strello and OC Takamaki. These two have been glued together for 53 minutes of this race. They have not been more than a second apart for the entire race at the moment, and they're in different classes. They're not racing for position, but Takamaki is definitely reaping the benefits here of just being pulled along behind the 269 Honda. And by the way, very nice to see the Honda up here in fourth at the moment, because I don't think we have any in the top 23 at the moment, apart from the Strello brothers car.
No, I think you're right there, and it is nice to see a little bit of a variety coming out, and the NSX Honda definitely not a car that I see very often at Kyalami. So Rake Strello doing a great drive there to hold down fourth place, but of course Takamaki is going to try and prove his worth. It may go that way. Takamaki of course may just kind of get over the following position that he finds himself in. Of course, like you mentioned, a silver driver versus a pro driver, and not going to be racing for any championship points, but the pride at the end of the day, if you are a lower class driver and keeping up with the pros, it does feel good. And if you take a couple down with you, you definitely have a good night's sleep there. So Ozi Takamaki will currently just hold back, sit in fifth for the moment. Rake Strello in his NSX going to give himself a couple of car lengths as they come through Engwe and get a bit of breathing room. Takamaki doing good to just hold back and maybe just settle into position. Of course, an hour and 5 minutes left to still race here, and plenty of things to happen. Pit stop still incoming, and I'm sure some penalties towards the end of the race are also still going to come through. These drivers will be pushing the track limits all the way till the very end, and when you are only given a couple to deal with, if you've used them all up and your second driver gets into the car, you can sometimes get caught unawares and have to quickly serve a drive-through penalty as the second driver.
Yeah, that's the worst thing, and I've actually done that before. I've actually inherited a penalty from a teammate. It wasn't even my fault. I think a lot of us have been through that too. If you've ever ran in team races where you have a certain amount of off tracks you can have, you get in the car and then you do the last one and get booked for the penalty. And it's like, well, I just had the one, but your teammate had several. But that's just one example, of course. Do have some bad news for the 969. They were given a drive-through penalty for not respecting blue flags and forcing a lapped car off the track. So they have been given a drive-through after being given a warning for that earlier. So that's unfortunate. Their day has gone from bad to worse for the 969 car. 269 car, which I believe is a sister entry. As you mentioned, and as we are following now, the 269 is having the complete opposite day. They're having a nice day where they have come up into the top 5 and are looking for more at this point, and certainly been glued to the hip of Takamaki behind our leading silver driver. I would certainly be mindful if I was the leading in any class to sort of give a little more leeway to some of the other drivers, but I don't think they think of it like that. And of course, I'm not in these races, so I don't know. But I think these guys are all racing each other regardless, and the classes are sort of a secondary thought to these guys. I'm not trying to put words in their mouth. I don't truly know, but if I had to guess, the way that they race each other respectfully but also hard, they don't really care what class they're in, and you know, so be it. You see the classes are mixed up anyway, and just have a go with it. We saw earlier the 777 Whitford car did have a couple, I think that was Rats and the number 52 Commentator's Curse team. He let them go through, and that was very clearly he lifted off and let them have the preferred line. But I think that's really the only example I've seen so far, because every time else it's been this, what you're seeing right now, Ragestrello in a pro car being chased by Takamaki in a silver car. And of course, if you weren't with us earlier, they're allowed to do that here in RLM. You can race the other classes. It doesn't matter if you have pace. That's all that is important, and it's been brilliant so far. We have seen a few cars come in and take their pit stop. Among the first is the number 49 Ferrari. That's Samir Ibrahimi behind the wheel now. They have satisfied the need of the pit stop, the driver change. They are good to go to the finish. You see the green placard on the name, and you see Fonasario in pit road now. After the punt and spin, he's going to come in and go ahead, and he certainly will have damage that I imagine they will address. But also the silver car of these things has come in. The number 18 Ferrari has come in and satisfied his need to pit. But there we go. The first of the top 3 cars, the one at 17, he'll come in. Fonasario will get out of the car. I'm not entirely sure who will get in that car. I'd have to refer to the spotter guide, the excellent spotter guides that we have here in RLM. I think somebody could post a link in chat to that thing. They're absolutely wonderfully done, and they give you all the necessary information about the cars and the teams. This is your leader. This is Matthias Egger in the 126 Orion Racing Team Porsche. This team has been incredibly well dominant in this championship so far, and nothing much has changed for them. They bided their time for the first hour or so of this race and find themselves in the position of number 1 after some tragedy, I would say, had befallen the 117. You got Civilati now in the 117. Speaking of them, they've fallen all the way back down to 13th, but they are clearly the highest running of all of the teams that have pitted. Be interesting to take note of where Civilati comes out, or not where he comes out, but where everyone comes out in relation to him because of the undercut. And just a few more things. Thank you guys for sharing a bit of your Friday evening with us here at RLM Motorsports, or Redline Motorsports, I should say. And thank you guys for joining us on Twitch. We hope you're enjoying the race. We certainly are. Don't forget to follow the channel and maybe even subscribe if you would be so inclined. And if you're a Prime, Amazon Prime customer, you can do that for free. And then it helps us out with all sorts of things, including server cost. And if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to subscribe there as well, because it's free, and leave a like, and don't miss a single RLM race, because stuff like this happens nearly every day around here, and certainly we don't get to broadcast all of the races we do, and of course we do more than ACC, but it is excellent to be here on a Friday evening. George Smith, what are you going to do if you are the leading car?
Well, it's not a position that I often find myself in, so it would be a big theory craft ask to ask what I would do here. I guess, it's down to what his teammate's saying in his ear. Are you feeling good? I need to jump into the do I need to jump into the car? How's the pace looking? They're probably looking at their previous lap times. We saw that Egger's not been having a bad time since taking over the lead. Definitely not hating the fact that he doesn't have a car to chase down. So I think, it's kind of down to where things feel. It's kind of the first bit of fresh air that Egger's really had, and probably going to capitalize on it for a couple of laps before wanting to dive into the pits. Something that I noticed sort of off camera there was that the number 969 car seemed to have been disqualified on the timing sheet. So I'd love to know if there's some more feedback onto what happened with the 969 at some point. For anyone that was following with them, I saw that happened. And of course, Young, the number 70 Ferrari, also seems to have a drive-through, which I believe is just for track limits. Nothing from our stewards for now. But that is something that I did say you have to manage. There's plenty of corners here where the track limits are just so unforgiving and a little bit too wide and gaining a track advantage, and you're just punished so severely with that drive-through.
Yeah, picking up a drive-through is something you really don't want to do around any circuit, and obviously Kyalami is one of those that you really don't want to do. Another one was Spa. You definitely don't want a drive-through penalty around there, but of course we've already done Spa, so we'll quickly leave that topic be. But Jesse did mention that we have races going on almost every day here at RLM. Well, I can actually tell you that we have racing available to you for the next 4 consecutive days. If you find yourself with nothing to watch in the evening, if the television isn't producing anything too interesting, and you have some free time, we do have some championships being broadcast over the weekend and heading into the new week. And that'll actually be starting off with the Night Owl Championship, Race 2 of the Night Owl Championship Split 1. That's going to be at Silverstone starting at 11 p.m. BST. On Sunday, we have our Ferrari versus Lamborghini Pro Split at Misano. That's going to be an incredibly exciting race. I've heard it's going to rain. Oof. Wouldn't want to be in a Lambo. Going into Monday on the 25th, we're going to be having the NSX Cup, the Pro Split of the NSX Cup. That's going to be at Zolder, and then of course on Tuesday have the NSX Cup Pro-Am Championship. That's also going to be at Zolder. So 4 incredible days of racing. Both of those races on Monday and Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. BST. The Misano race at 7 p.m. BST. So much going on at the moment around RLM in ACC, never mind all the other championships that we've also got going on at the moment.
I have a theory, Ryan. I have a theory that RLM Racing, watching this on Twitch and YouTube, is making me fat, because all I do in the evening, or in the afternoon for me, because I'm in the Americas, but all I do is either I commentate these races or I grab a bag of chips, potato chips, or crisps as they're called elsewhere, and I veg out and I watch these races. And that's all I get done, because the problem is they put on all these races and they're all so interesting and I don't want to miss anything. And even when I do miss something, I go back and watch the VOD. And I'm not even joking. It's not a PSA for anybody wondering. I literally do that. I tell these guys all the time, like, oh, I watched a VOD of this race last night, and I think it's making me fat, because I always have to have a snack when I watch it, and I'm always so nervous when I watch the race because of how crazy it is. I eat the whole bag, so I think there's a lawsuit there for me against RLM for making me fat at some point. But I digress. The 126 continues to lead this race, and they are not yet pitted. They are required to pit at some point. All drivers have a maximum drive time in this race, so everybody has to pit anyway, but you have to pit anyway to satisfy the pit requirement. Lost my words there. Number 52 has been driven by Jake Boswell, now up into 9th position, so that's a positive move there. Civilati's all the way back up to 5th place. He's actually in front of the 248, which is now inside the top 6. Cartosi, they have not pitted either. None of your top 4 have. And at some point, I have to think that Civilati is going to make out like a bandit here with time because of the undercut, but I wonder if it'll be paid back on the other end. Egger, Matushka, Takamaki, I should say, and Zero. I love that name, by the way. Stefan Zero. I love that name. None of those have pitted yet. Those are your top runners. And play the game at home, folks. Pay attention to where they come out versus where they went in. Egger has ever so slightly edged out Matushka to a few more tenths. And just as I say that, Egger is in pit road. That team has decided to bring their driver in for driver change full service. They have a new pilot on board, the 126. Be interesting to see. Matushka is far enough behind that he will be able to determine if he should come in. His team has not brought him in. I believe Phil Vitt will be the second driver for the number 25 Audi. They have not come in, so they're going extra long. I don't know. I don't recall if they did that at Spa or not, or if they were one of the first ones. I don't actually recall. But Takamaki also hasn't come in yet, but he's far enough back. And again, commentators not curse, but mark of yes, Takamaki has come in indeed, just confirming that visually with my eyes. So the first place car and what was effectively the fourth place car have now come in, and that's going to leave Stefan Zero and Wolf Matushka for second and first respectively to be the top runners that haven't come in. A few other cars in the field, the 421 and obviously the 70 have not pitted yet. So the 720 I just see coming in as well. And a couple of penalties to report. Mr. Reingill.
Yeah, we do have a couple of penalties to report. There is something a bit more concerning that I have just noticed on the timing board at the moment. We have lost the Strello brothers car. The Honda, which was finding itself in fourth place at the moment, has disappeared off my timing board, and if I look at the broadcasting tool, I can actually see that it says they are currently in the pit lane on lap 34. We're currently on lap 39 of the race, so
oh dear.
I am unfortunately going to have to report that I believe the Strello brothers car has crashed out through a game error or some error, obviously not resulting.
Yeah, game crash.
Yeah,
right,
game crash.
Game crash.
That is incredibly unfortunate to see. Running so well as well in fourth place. It's incredibly unfortunate to see.
Indeed.
And of course that does move. That moves Takamaki up one place automatically. Of course, he has come into the pit lane now, hasn't he? And the car's been taken over by Vatanen. They're down in 13th place at the moment. And actually, they've dropped a lot of places compared to everyone else. I wonder if there's been some issue in the pit lane for that car.
There might have been, Ryan. I think that's a thing. I think you hit it on the head. I think there's some sort of error in pit lane, sort of probably with the stop again. I'm just guessing here, but we're talking about the Strello brothers. They are brothers. They're actually twins. The Strello brothers of Reg and Steve Strello. It's unfortunate to have them go out, but this wouldn't be the first time that that's happened to them, where they've had a game error that has led them to retire from what would have been at minimum a top 5 finish. So my heart goes out to those boys. Those guys race hard and they like to have fun, those lapping party guys, but my word, what a way to have it taken away from you. I always said, guys, I never really minded if a mistake I did caused me to lose the race. Of course I'm mad, but it never really bothered me. But what really broke my heart is when the sim or something hardware related failed and it took it away from me. Those are the ones that I could not swallow, because that's completely out of your control. It's not your fault. It's a victim of circumstance, and those are the most heartbreaking. But those guys will be back in round 4 at Silverstone in 2 weeks, and I know that they'll be more motivated than ever. Those guys, they race hard, they party hard, they have a lot of fun, and they're brothers, and that's a cool activity to do as a family, to come out here and sim race. But we will see them
Jesse,
back soon.
I
Yes.
don't mean to interrupt you again. However, I've just noticed a significant change on the timing board after the pit stops. If you do remember, Samuel Ratz was in 7th place, and he came in ahead of Fabian Schwinberger. However, the pit stops have now happened, and Jake Boswell is in 7th, and Gian Onorati has dropped down to 10th.
Ay, ay, ay.
So
nothing here. That's why.
Pitstorm's going
goodness.
crazy at the moment in Redline Motorsport. I'm not too sure whether it's people missing their marks or having incorrect settings on their pit stops, but there seems to be an absolute calamity with some people's pit stops at the moment today. Of course, we know that's nothing. There's no game crash or anything involved in the likes of the 192 Ferrari, because the car is still continuing on in the race. It's still on the lead lap. So that's purely just down to something that's happened in the pit stops, and one way or another, it's benefited the commentator's curse car massively, as they now find themselves 5th in class, 7th overall.
Absolutely incredible stuff, really. I mean, I've also got a report, because the pit dramas wouldn't end there. The 720 got hit and is in the pits. Unfortunately, we didn't have a replay to bring you for that. The replay system is, you have to do it very quickly after the accident or after the event happens, I'm afraid. You can't just pull it all the way back to where you want it to, but there's
I can tell you some more, Jesse, on what happened
George.
there if you would like to know. So they Chumley handed over to his co-driver, and it looked like coming out of Cheetah, coming down to Ingwe, so the last corner was tapped by Freda, and then made contact with Yevanov as well, as kind of an innocent bystander there. So I believe that the 720 has picked up some more damage, and maybe that indicates why they are where they are at the moment and having to go back into the pits. So some incidents being caught up there and off stream, but unfortunately no luck going the way of the 720 at the moment for the fans.
That's unfortunate for them. That's Beardmore, who's in the car right now, and they're on the struggle bus today. And man, I am amazed that first of all, I'm not too surprised that Civilati got around Phil Vitt, or the 117 got around the 25. What I am amazed about, though, is some of the cars that Ryan mentioned have fallen straight down through the field due to the pit stop. But what is someone's loss is someone else's gain, and that's certainly the way it goes. Just want to update you on the incident. You may remember the Civilati driven car now, the 117, was involved in an incident with a lap down car. Steward's decision on the leading incident was that it was a racing incident. Both cars thought they were clear of each other, and they could not find fault to either driver. They scored that as strictly a racing incident and race on. So that's what the final decision from that was. George Smith, you agree with that?
I think it's very fair. I think that at the end of the day, we only caught a little glimpse of it, and it's hard to be impartial as commentators to what went on. From the onset and the angle that we had, it looked like it was a back marker causing a collision. But if you go back and think about it, the entry to the S's is there's only one place that you can go, and that's that inside apex. The back marker was on that inside line from the exit of Clubhouse, and they were just kind of going alongside. Back marker could have potentially lifted to give that potential position through, but at the end of the day, you're racing for position against other cars, and if you are on track and alongside one another, I think it's a good call to call it a racing incident at the end of the day. Just a pity that you're the lead car getting into that kind of a collision.
Certainly so, Mr. George Smith. One thing that you guys may have noticed as well as me, Ryan, you were talking about pit mistakes and pit chaos earlier. Got some more of it for you. You may notice that the 12th place car, the one with the 248, that's Cartosi, they've been in and out of pit lane several times, and I think they finally got it right this time. I think something amiss with that team, or miscommunications, or something of the lot. They've got it sorted now, this time down pit road, and have finally got that pit stop. Ryan, would you have any idea what could, because they came down pit road 2 or 3 times without success to clear their mandatory stop. Can you think of anything that would cause that?
I can think of one of 2 possible scenarios. Is either the first time they came down pit road, they forgot to change the option to have a driver swap, which is something that can happen, because the way you do driver swaps in ACC, you yourself have to choose who is getting in the car to replace you, so that could possibly slip your mind. It's not your teammate that controls your pit stop. It is you yourself, so it's entirely possible it can slip your mind, although if you're in communication with your teammate, unlikely. The only other thing I can probably put it down to is there was a pit stop glitch going on around, it was about 2 or 3 months ago, where you would set a driver to swap cars and it just wouldn't do it. That issue was then since we were told it's been fixed, so I'm not 100% sure if it could be that. But if it's not a bug, then the only thing I could put it down to is just driver error on the pit stop, which, you know, I don't think that would happen 2 or 3 times, maybe once, but yeah, it's interesting to see that, you know, they've been into the pit lane once or maybe on multiple occasions and have still failed to get that driver swap done and dusted. It's going to be significant concern for them, and of course they were well in the lead of the AM class. Now they find themselves down in 2nd and potentially under threat from 3rd in the AM class as well. But someone who is under threat at the moment, Polizzi in the 127 Porsche, a nice white and blue Porsche. I think this is one of the Racing Line Motorsport cars. Is currently under pressure from the likes of Jake Boswell in the number 52 Commentator's Curse car. That Commentator's Curse Aston Martin is flying around here. I don't believe anything that Fabian Schweinberger says anymore when he says they weren't looking forward to this race. They were struggling in practice, and, you know, they think their season has been okay but not great so far. I don't think I can trust him anymore.
Right, you know what, the Aston Martin is just one of those cars that here at Kyalami in these long endurance stretches, I saw it at a 6-hour that I did. The Aston Martin just really has the legs when it comes to the longer stints. The Ferrari, the Porsches are great. I just called the Porsche Ferrari. I called the Porsche Lamborghini the other day. I may have lost my favorite car, and I'm a little bit sad about it. But the Aston Martin really is a well-balanced car. It's really fair on tires. You know, if you drive it safely and you think about what you're doing, you can really get a lot out of your tires, and it really goes a long way when you are coming into the closing sectors of the race. I mean, 41 minutes still to go. We wouldn't call it the closing phase just yet, but it is a place that you do want to feel that you are competitive and feel like you have a little bit more grip on the cars around you. So Ibriami is also flying at the moment, and that Ferrari behind that Aston Martin there of Jake Boswell will be bothering those rearview mirrors soon. So a little 3-way battle on track is going to be a treat for the viewers, I'm sure, and a 3-way manufacturer battle on top of that to, you know, add a little bit of spice to the flavoring.
I have to say, George, you've called a Porsche a Ferrari and a Lamborghini in the past week. I'm starting to think that my influence as a fan of Italian cars is starting to rub off on you, quite literally, in fact, that you've all of a sudden decided that you don't like the Porsche anymore and that you'd much rather have a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. But don't worry, I accept the fact that you may have noticed the superior manufacturers in the world. And
Ryan, talking about superior manufacturers, that Porsche was making big mistakes on the exit of Crocodile there, and Ibriami around the outside of Ingwe is going to try and get past on Jake. I don't think Jake is going to be able to fight back on that, so Ibriami around the outside of Ingwe, late on the brakes, giving each other room, will be fairly squeezed. I mean, Jake was trying to squeeze, but he couldn't because the move was done. Ibriami with a beautiful bit of driving to slide that Ferrari up into 6th place. So Jake Boswell will now have to cool it off on that chase down on that Red Line Motorsports Porsche, and hope that Ibriami is going to make the work a little bit easier for him. Ibriami flashing his lights up at Polizzi, just to let him know that you know, he's on fire, he's on pace, and he's very confident about where his tires are at this point in the race, and will be looking for a move. So, you know, a little flash of the lights, just letting him know that, you know, I'm not comfortable settling in. I would like to get by, and if you do leave a space, I will be slotting myself in.
Yeah, this team had a tough start to the race. Of course, the number 49 Jardier community team, this is Samir Ibrahimi behind the wheel. Jardier started this car, immediately got taken off the track. It was on a recovery drive. This team was knocked all the way down out of the top 5 into 13th position. Now fighting for a top 5 spot on Polizzi here. And I was going to say this about Jake the Bosmeister Boswell earlier in the number 52 Barney sponsored machine, is that he has to get going because Ibrahimi is not going to wait. Ibrahimi's going to come up there and take it, and maybe here in the final turn kind of took Mr. Boswell by surprise a little bit. Probably the last corner on this entire circuit. You think about going around the outside, but Jake, being a classy driver like he is and a heads-up man, he saw it coming, or he saw him there, gave him room. And now the thing is that if you are Mr. Jake Boswell, you're looking at Ibrahimi to make this move on Polizzi, just so you can potentially get back to the task of taking on and passing the 127, because don't forget, that's what Boswell was attempting to do on the 127 before Ibrahimi showed up and stole his thunder. But Ibrahimi can help Boswell here, and I think that's actually what might happen. I'm a little disappointed that Ibrahimi isn't flashing his lights as much as I would like. Honestly, I'd like more light flashing personally. But Ibrahimi, what an incredible move! I just have to say it. What an incredible move out of the final turn as he thinks about going to the inside, thinks better of it, pulls back in line for these set of corners here. Ibrahimi loves to do that. I've seen him race enough now to know he loves to make that move, or to make that little bit of move. Now he's going to try to go around the outside here again. Can't quite make it stick. Now he's going to have the inside. Is the inside enough?
This is it.
Porsche makes a bit of a mistake, but comes back on track. I thought it was it too, George Smith, but no.
No, but he's watch. Coming in here, he's got the line to come through. He's going to squeeze that Porsche out. Oh, good bit of driving coming out from both driving. Coming down into Cheetah, single file through here. Anyone makes a mistake. We saw Jake Boswell do that, and that's where Ibrahimi was able to capitalize before Ingwe. But it will be a hard defense from that Porsche. Ibrahimi is giving it beans, but Polizzi doing everything right. I mean, we saw the undercut attempt coming at the top of Leeuwkorp, and then running wide. Polizzi didn't have the run down Mineshaft, but put his car in the right place. Coming down into Crowthorne, he's going for the inside. Ibrahimi late on the brakes. Will Polizzi be able to cut back? They are going to try and fight back through the Yuxke sweep, but Ibrahimi looks like he's got the move done. A beautiful bit of driving up to T2, but Barbecue is still there and an option for Polizzi, but not quite yet, because the drive is there from Ibrahimi, and a beautiful bit of driving coming out from the Ferrari.
I think, unless I'm not very much mistaken, in the fury that was that attempt, I believe Ibrahimi has turned on his actual full headlights now. I don't think those were on before, unless my eyes are broken, but all of his lights ablaze now as he's now gotten through there. That was about an entire lap of setup to get that done down into the first turn, but what a treat it was. And now, if you are Jake Boswell, now you have to try that yourself, right? You have to say, well, if Ibrahimi can do it, I can do it. Certainly, if I go down in there. Of course, all of these cars we're talking about, this is for 4th position. Ibrahimi, 4th position in class, I should say, 5th overall. Matyasi has the 312 Bentley firmly in the first Silver Cup spot in 4th place overall. It is, 4 cars between him and the next Silver Cup car of 514. That's Geider in that particular position. So he's well up here, and he will be, the reason I bring up Matyasi, he is the next target for Ibrahimi to get by. he's again on the recovery drive, and what a move and what a few laps it was for Samir Ibrahimi. And now, of course, we look back. This camera here is wonderful camera work by Ryan Gill here. This is Palizzi's rear wing looking back at Jake Boswell. This is for 5th in the class, in the pro class. And I have to agree with Ryan. Ryan earlier said that talking about this commentator's curse team underestimating themselves, and here they are again inside the top 5 in their class at a track that they maybe don't have as much confidence or practice at. But regardless, the result is pretty much the same. But I have a few more words of bad news from some of the events that have come through. A couple of these penalty reports have been piling up.
Ryan,
I think
just,
I think we might have just lost Jesse Lee for a moment there. He did say that there was a thunderstorm.
He did say he was having storms, so
Yeah.
he potentially he could have been washed away. Our American may have been washed out.
We hope that
it did
Jesse
feel
is
like
okay.
Ryan, it did feel like you just muted Jesse and were like, you know what? You are finished now. So
Well,
we hope that
confidential
Jesse is coming
information.
back.
Confidential information about penalties. We're going to go on, but no, more onto the topic of what Jesse was going to talk about. Whilst he definitely works on reconnecting. There was an incident with car 421, and doesn't actually say which car he was involved in, but he caused a collision on lap 37. And that earned him a drive-through penalty. Interesting fact about that car, it has not served its pit stop yet. You may notice it has a 130-second penalty on the side of its name. That was not given
So
by
he exceeded.
Yeah,
he
that was
exceeded the
not
driver's
given
stint.
by the stewards. It was given by the system for exceeding the maximum stint limit, which is 70 minutes, I believe.
Yep.
So yeah, he's exceeded the maximum limit. As we see Jake Boswell go side by side with Polizzi, and just a slight bit of contact there. Jake Boswell maybe.
Can we get a replay quickly there? Let's see if they were side by side coming into Clubhouse. Oh, it does look like there needed to be some more space there. They did look a little bit alongside. Didn't look too dive bomby. Looked like the Porsche almost closed the door. But obviously going to wait back and see what the stewards can say. We can't get all the action replays. We can't slow things down. But it will be a bit of contact for Jake Boswell, and just send him a little bit down the, a little bit down the road, and he's going to have to try and catch back up. Off camera, I also noticed that Matiasi in 4th place did make a bit of an error on the previous lap, Ryan. He spun out after Clubhouse, and that's allowed Ibrahimi to close right down onto the back of Matiasi. So that'll be the battle for 5th and 4th. Of course, Ibrahimi in 5th in that Ferrari, Matiasi in the Bentley, which beautiful to see the Bentley up in up in the contention of the top 5 at the moment. Of course, if Ibrahimi does get the move done, will still remain in the top 5. But the Bentley, a beautiful sounding car in real life. I do remember it screaming at the Kyalami 9 hour. And once again, Ibrahimi going to take the inside line. They're going to go into Yuxke sweep. And Ibrahimi is just a master of Crowthorne, it seems. And makes that move just look so easy. It's not an easy braking point. You're coming down at full speed, getting on the brakes, and trying to hit the inside apex. But Samir Ibrahimi is just proving that he is nailing his apexes and racing lines, and does not care for tires at this point. He just looks like he is planted. You see the Bentley running quite wide, a little bit understeery coming through the exit of Sunset, but the Ferrari looking a lot more planted and a lot more pointed coming into the apexes of the corners.
Yeah, you just touched on the sound of the Bentley, and as someone who has attended a GT World Challenge race before, I can definitely attest to that. All these cars, they sound absolutely brilliant. It's one of ACC's strongest points, in my opinion, is how well the sound is translated over. And in my opinion, there are 2 cars in GT that you have to hear the sound of at some point in your life, and that is the Lamborghini. And not because I'm a Lamborghini fan, but because the sound that car makes is unreal. And the second one is the Nissan GTR. The incredible noises that those cars make going past you at 140 mile an hour is unbelievable.
can we add the Aston Martin, the V8 one as well? I mean, the V12 screams, but the V8 in real life as well with the turbos and just hearing them flutter if you stand by the corners of the gear down. Oh, it is a purely orgasmic sound. And you know what? The only difference that is here from the real life thing, that the only thing that you're missing, it's not down to the sound, it's down to the feel, because that really is something about these motor cars in real life, is that feel of them coming around. You can hear them, but you can also feel the rumble, and it really is invasive if you're not a fan. But if you are a fan, you just embrace it, and you spend 9 hours at a race like that just smiling the entire time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's one of the things. I mean, when we see Jake Boswell on the same corner a couple of laps ago, tried to go down the inside, had a look at the outside this time round, and he's got Jan Onorati 2.3 seconds behind him. So Jake Boswell's got to get a move on at some point. But yeah, I mean, I was at Donington Park for the British GT season finale, and it was the first time I'd ever come across cars like this up close and personal. Of course, Donington Park, a very old school track, you can get very close to the circuit. Not many fences around Donington Park, but there's a couple of places you can get right up close to where the cars are, and like you said, George, there's nothing like it. When you hear them come past, you don't just hear them, you feel them as well. And with some of the bigger cars especially.
Yeah, I was going to just say, I do know that we have our American back in. He seems to have recovered from his stormy situation. JC, are you also back here?
Yeah, I sure am, guys. Lightning is a heck of a thing. It's very powerful, and sometimes it causes everything to go out. I warned you guys earlier that there were storms in my area, and I got a little bit there, but we are absolutely okay. We're back, and just the thing you deal with this time of year if you live in the eastern United States. Anybody from that area can relate to the stormy spring weather. It's otherwise really hot and humid, so we'll take the cooling storms. But this race between these two guys is pretty incredible. And guys, I got something else to tell you. I was doing something in my short intermission. I got my calculator out and I was doing a little math because I was curious if that number 49 Ferrari could go catch that number 25 Audi. And the answer is it absolutely can at its current pace. If Samir Ibrahimi keeps up his pace, he will catch Phil Vitt before the end of this race for a podium spot. Now, what about that for a recovery drive? As once again, Jake Boswell thinks about going around the outside of Polizzi and doesn't quite get that to come off, but you have to imagine at some point he's going to get that move. But yes, at the pace that Samir has currently, he would catch him. He would have plenty of time. He could even have some bad laps and catch Phil Vitt. Now, we'll have to see if he can keep up the pace that he's on. Certainly, he's using a lot of tires. He's putting a lot of heat in them to make these excellent passes and moves that we've seen. But he can do it, guys, and I think that's something we should all keep an eye on, as we right now keep an eye on Mr. Boswell and Mr. Polizzi right now. This is an excellent battle. I can't believe that the purple dinosaur isn't by the Porsche at this point. As now he's thinking about going to the inside move. He gets covered a little bit by Polizzi, can't quite do it, and as a gentleman, Boswell is. Of course, Boswell is better known for his race room racing experience driving, where he is a very successful driver. He says he's taking more of a liking to ACC recently, has been refocusing towards driving an ACC, teamed up with the driver that I cannot name for contractual obligation reasons, because I've exchanged commentators' curses for German lessons. But at any rate, he has done a great job of teaming up with a really great driver in his own right and taking himself on the fast track to success here. I mean, this team he's getting covered again. Polizzi covers to the inside. Is going to give Boswell the outside, and I think it's going to be about the same result. Boswell turns in a little harder than he otherwise would, but doesn't quite get the angle again. But guys, he's looking real close, and for somebody who has recently started being really serious about ACC, it is incredible to see his progress. I mean, he's fighting for a top 5 spot in pro class in the top tier. That's not bad.
No, it's definitely...
No, not at all.
Oh, sorry, George, you go ahead.
No, and I was going to say, and keeping up with a Porsche here, definitely a car that is favored on BOP. It's just a great bit of driving, and I think he's doing exactly what we said in terms of just needing to put that pressure on. He's definitely putting his nose in and letting that Porsche of Polizzi know that he wants to have a look. Again, he'll take a look towards the inside of Crowthorne, but not quite there and not quite alongside to have any effect. And that's going to affect his drive out. He's going to have Onorati. Is that Onorati on his tail right now as well? So Onorati in that Ferrari is giving him pressure, and you can just see that Jake Boswell has had to go defensive, and this has cost him that battle with the Porsche, because now it's all about saving that 7th place. Onorati is on the attack here in his Ferrari and is not wanting to, not settle at all, because Jake Boswell battling with that Porsche has definitely cost himself a bit of time. It looked like he was faster in sections, but because you can't make a pass with the car planted on the apex on the inside every time, you are just going to lose out time, because you're going to have to lift to make sure that you're not going to contact the car behind. And Onorati going to have a look on the inside. Jake giving plenty of room, and Onorati is going to squeeze past on the inside, coming down the top of Leocorp. I think that Onorati is going to try and get the move done side by side, still through mine shot. They'll go. Onorati will be on the racing line. Jake is going to be squeezed and have to tuck behind, and Onorati gonna go, but Jake has got the drive out. I don't think this is where you want to be coming through. They're gonna go alongside, coming through. Cheetah side by side, they would. Jake Boswell holds it, doesn't clip the sausage curb, and secures it before Ingwe. The cutback potential coming out now from Onorati, but it's not gonna be there. He's not gonna be close enough down the start-finish straight, and the Aston Martin defends against the Ferrari with 23 minutes to go.
How did he do that? I can't do that. How can he do that? That's incredible. The way that Jake drives a car is so different than most of the other people I've ever seen. He's so calm, cool, and collected about it. And if you've ever talked to Jake Boswell, he's an incredibly chill driver. Not a driver, excuse me, an incredibly chill human being. He sees the fun in a lot of things, and he's not high strung, and he just loves to compete. The way that he lost that battle, immediately got back on that horse and got by him again. The respect from Onorati as well, from both of these competitors on each other. That's exactly what we want here in this series. That's exactly what we want to see, and we're certainly seeing it between not only these drivers, but a lot of others besides, and Polizzi as well, for the way that they're all driving. This is proving to everyone, you can be aggressive, you can be defensive, you can take away people's lines, but you can do it in such a way that it doesn't interfere with racing and it doesn't cause incidents. I love that kind of thing that these pro tier or tier 1 drivers, I should say, that's what they're here to do. They're here to put on a show and make it around safely, and that's what most of them are doing, and this has just been incredible between the two of them. The problem here, guys, is that battle has given Polizzi about a 2-second lead on Boswell.
I don't want to cut in, Jesse, but Polizzi has actually just made a mistake of Cheetah.
Oh no!
And that has actually cost him 3 places. In fact, he has found himself behind the silver car of Gaida. And Onorati's going to go for a move into turn 1, just touching with the Aston Martin of Jake Boswell. Not entirely sure if maybe it was a bit of an aggressive push or if it was a small tap, but Onorati finds his way past Jake Boswell, and he will move up into 6th overall. But yes, Polizzi did make a mistake, and he has dropped down into 9th now. And just something...
Jake?
Just something that...
Yeah, you saw... Sorry, you carry on, Ryan.
I was just going to say, just something that we noticed earlier with these two cars, going side by side for so long. Jesse said that Jake Boswell, would have been quite chill. Not sure if chill is probably the word I would use when he was going side by side with Onorati. I can tell you one thing, his teammate Fabian Schwiberger would have been anything but chill, considering how much I know about him. But Onorati is passed, and over to you, George.
Yeah, I was going to just say that Boswell, you could see after the exit of Barbecue, was not quite happy about the move that Honorati had pulled. Just kind of flashing his lights. You get, different stages of flashing. There's that, I want to pass you flashing, and what are you doing flashing, and was that fair flashing? There's all different stages of flashing, and we didn't get the full picture.
Do you want to catch lunch later? Flashing is that one that's used?
I wanted to say when JC was talking about light flashing that motorsports is probably the only place that light flashing is allowed on a broadcast. So every other stream that you watch, it's highly discouraged, and we quite enjoy seeing that, and sometimes it just gives a little bit of emotion to some of the drivers that are here. A lot of us look at these guys as just being pure aliens and not having any human souls, but a little bit of flashing lights just still shows that there is some human emotion at play, and it will be interesting to see if anything will be dealt out by the stewards. I mean, both cars still out on track and still going to be battling. We've come down into the closing 20 minutes of the race. This is where, if you have been pushing those tires, you will start to feel the effects. I believe that the track temperature is still relatively cold, so that will favor the longer race endurance stint here. It's only just gone 8:30, kind of the time I would be starting work in South Africa. My boss was listening, he'd be disappointed to hear that it was not the hour earlier as we agreed on, but 8:30, that's a fair time to start. And Boswell going to still try and do something again on Honorati. We saw the respectful driving coming in. It was something that I wanted to talk about. When they came up to Leocorp previously, Jake gave Honorati the space. Honorati came on the inside, Jake gave him the space on the outside, and that just transitioned all the way through these next couple of corners, through Crocodile, through Cheetah. It was that respectful driving that takes two to tango, and to get that bit of on-screen camera action between two drivers pushing it at the limits is really a treat in sim racing. And you just got to commend both drivers for having that respect and giving each other the peace of mind and the room to allow us to capture something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's over yet, George, because Jake Boswell was a second behind Honorati at the start of this lap. Now he's about 3.5 tenths behind. There is some back markers in front, but that's not where Jake Boswell gained most of the time. The 76 Aston Martin will move out of the way. But I legitimately think Jake Boswell has the pace to stick with Honorati here, and maybe in these last 18 minutes make another move for that 5th place in class.
And he's got the exits out of Barbecue. He does have the exits, and he's got the slip. They're going to go side by side now through Sunset this time. I feel like both drivers are trying to get some awesome screenshots by the end of this race. Every corner, we will go side by side. Inside line here for Jake. What a bit of driving through Clubhouse. He will get it. The Ferrari from Honorati will be trying to fight back, but a beautiful bit of driving once again coming out from the commentator's curse, number 52. And through the S's, has given himself some breathing room coming up to Leocorp, where he previously lost out. Didn't even lose out. I mean, just gave the opportunity to go alongside. Honorati won't have that opportunity here.
That's just absolutely incredible driving by Jake Boswell here. He has very much been in the thick of it here for the past, 15, 20 minutes or so. He's had to deal with so much, and he's just taken it all in stride. What I was saying earlier about him being cool, calm, and collected, he's very much the Kimi Räikkönen of this group of pro drivers. He's got ice water in his veins, and the way that he explains things to me in interviews that I do with him about certain racing incidents or things that happened on the racetrack, he always explains them so very calmly and simply. There was a car in front of me, and it nearly took me out, but it didn't, because I slowed down and I got out of it and looked in the rearview mirror and I laughed and I kept going. That's Jake Boswell. That's how he is, and it's so funny because he's so calm, cool, collected. He's the Iceman of RLM in that way, and you're seeing it live here today, fighting for a top 5 spot in pro category tier 1. This team sits 6th overall in the championship, and they said today, of course, that they weren't quite as confident as they were at some of the other tracks. Well, Commentators Curse Team, you're having a great day out there as well. And I agree with Ryan. I don't think I trust the German driver, this guy's teammate, to give me information anymore based on how they are running. Earlier, you guys may have remembered that I mentioned that Samir Ibrahimi was on the pace to catch Phil Vitt for third place. That is probably not going to happen anymore, but that's not because Samir Ibrahimi's slowing down. Phil Vitt's actually gotten faster. He's gained nearly 7 seconds or so on Civilati. It's still 10.5 seconds behind, but he certainly gained a lot of time on the second place driver, and that has halted Samir Ibrahimi's sort of charge. In fact, he's lost over a second in the last 3 or so laps, so that's not looking like it's going to be on the cards anymore. But wow, what a crazy race it has been so far, and we still have 15 minutes left for things to change again. Do we know, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan in particular, because I think you saw it, what happened to Polizzi exactly?
I think he went off at Cheetah. It was definitely. I think it was George. I think that more specifically spotted him in the gravel trap before I did. But he definitely went
Cheetah
off.
That he had come off.
Yeah, definitely went off at Cheetah. Probably hit the anti-cut sausage curb on the inside of that corner. Of course, that curb is lethal most of the time. If you hit that, you're going to go into the wall. So if he did avoid the wall, he did very well to obviously avoid that. But he has dropped back off of these two, and of course he was the one who was just in front of Jake Boswell. I don't think this battle is over between Boswell and Onorati. Half a second between them. I'm pretty sure this is going to keep going on to the end of the race, but Stefano Canapi is in the chat. He's the manager for Racing Line Motorsport. Wonderful guy. He's always full of praise and happiness, and it's always great to see him in and around the races and the streams. He said he's losing 10 years of his life watching this battle right now. I can imagine that Fabian Schmidberger is probably losing the same.
Absolutely. So just as we have a lull in the action, I'm going to attempt to do what I tried to do before local thunderstorms decided I didn't need to do. I'm going to read off some of the penalties that maybe haven't been read off yet. There's a drive-through penalty. This is way earlier, mind you. This is going from about 40 minutes ago to current time. The 172 was given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. No further action for the 117 and the 76. The 117 was the leader. 76 was a lapped car. That caused an incident that took out the leader. There was no further action deemed a racing incident. Car 199 was given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. No further action between an incident between the 193 and the 720. Car 421 was given a drive-through for causing a collision on lap 37. No further action between cars 43 and the 999. There was actually no contact between the cars, even though there was an incident reported. Car 69 was given a warning for unsafe driving. Car 72 was given a 10-second stop and go for causing a collision with the car number 77. Car number 77 again was given a warning for taking care to avoid collisions while overtaking. Car number 86 was given a warning for poor overtaking attempts under blue flag. Car 199 was given a warning for respecting blue flags. And finally, what just occurred, car 192 was given a warning for very aggressive overtaking. And that is a very short and long-winded at the same time rundown of all of the incidents that have occurred since the last time that we have spoken. A lot of warnings, not a lot of penalties there. The steward letting them race, George Smith.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes, it is just a little bit of a racing incident side of things. It's not 100%, someone's fault. So sometimes just a warning, letting the guys get back to racing. A little bit of trading paints is something that you can get in the tin tops if you're in open wheelers. Of course, any contact there is just, catastrophic. So, if there's a little bit of rubbing is racing and guys are, trying to get along by one another, especially at a narrow circuit, it's good to see that the stewards aren't too harsh on things that are fair in racing incidents. So Jake Boswell going to run wide out of barbecue. Onorati here on board in the Ferrari. Of course, the number 192 Racing Line Motorsport Ferrari has been chasing with Jake Boswell, and trading positions and giving us a real show for the end of the stream for what feels like almost the last 20 or 30 minutes. But incredible bits of driving coming out from both drivers. And of course, Honorati, not someone to discount towards the end. And as they come up to back markers, anything can happen. We saw our leader get involved in a racing incident, and that threw him out. And of course, Silverlotti now slotted into second, his teammates having done that. Back markers coming down towards Mineshaft. The Aston Martin going to be jumping out the way, sticking to the left side of the circuit, allowing both racers to get on by unaffected by his position on track. Crocodile, both of them apexing it where they need to be, which means we're not going to get some alongside action coming into Cheetah this time round. I still think it's incredible that we did get to see some fast-paced racing through Cheetah. Somewhere you normally see guys go, single file, but I guess you can fit two GT3s side by side through that corner. Now I know.
I would just like to, sorry Ryan, I'll throw it to you in a second. I just gotta say, I've been corrected in chat, and I'm, as I always say with these races, if I'm saying your name wrong and it annoys you or you would like it corrected, please, by all means, correct me. I'm Jesse Lee, by the way. Correct me. I am all about it. I don't want to get your name wrong. And for the first part of this race, we had a man that I was calling Chisa or Kisa or Chessa in the 172 Racing Line Motorsport Porsche. He's actually come into chat and he's corrected me. He said that his name's pronounced Kisa. Well, David Kisa, I apologize and thank you so much. And I won't forget that, so thank you for that. And for more on pronouncing names correctly, we go to Ryan Gill.
Well, if it's Latin names, then it's definitely something that I have a lot more experience with, being someone that's lived in a Latin country or Latin-based country and dealt with a lot of people from all sorts of areas all over Europe. I definitely have a lot more experience with foreign names. I haven't quite cracked the German names yet. Fortunately, Schmidberger seems to be one of the much more easier names for me to get down on, although I still say Fabian's first name incorrectly, and I will continue to do that because he doesn't try and correct me on it. So, moving on to the last...
Is it meant to be Fabian?
It's meant to be... It is
Fabian,
it's
yes.
Fabian,
yeah.
But anyway, moving on to the last 8 minutes of this race. There is under a second between these two cars. The 52 Commentator's Curse Aston Martin and the 192 Ferrari of Jan Onorati. Commentator's Curse versus Racing Line Motorsport. We've got the team manager for Racing Line Motorsport in the chat. We've got the teammate of the Commentator's Curse car in the chat. Both of them are probably chewing their fingers away. I'm pretty sure fingernails are already long gone after this section of events. They're well into the fingers at the moment. But now, with 7.5 minutes left, well, I'm going to put it to you, George. Which one of these two do you think is coming out on top?
Out of Honorati and Boswell, I would. You put me on the line here. I'm actually going through a tunnel and I'm breaking up.
Here we go. Every time. Well, I think George, don't.
The excuses have begun, ladies and gentlemen.
George, I'll throw you a live vest and I'll answer the question. I think Boswell gets it here, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I like seeing both of these team managers in chat, though. It's such a weird thing because in real racing, you don't really get that, but here in sim racing, we do. We have, and it's nice to have you guys here, and I love having these good-natured team managers and drivers here that, though their cars are fighting tooth and nail on track, they remain completely friendly off the track, and they're sharing a laugh together, laughing at us, by the way, in case you guys are wondering in the booth. But they're laughing at us, but nothing wrong with that, completely fine. Just want to give a few updates on some of the classes. We got Matyasi, who is in 5th place overall. He's the highest ranking silver driver. He's looking to be the guy that's going to take the win in silver today over Guider in the 514. Sebastian Brunier is in the 777 Aston Martin. They're looking for a podium here, though they are only in front of Thiesing, which is the number 18 Ferrari. That's 4th place in silver. They're only in front of him by 3 seconds, but with 5 minutes and some change, that might be enough. And then we got Kinsler, who is in the number 8 Bentley, leading AM. They're in 14th overall. So that's really good for them. And they've got a few cars in between them and Carmelo, which is the 248. That is 2nd place in AM, and the 123 of Jones is 3rd place in AM, and that's 18th place. And of course, you know your top 3 in Pro. Just wanted to give those guys a bit of a shout out because, I mean, they absolutely deserve it. They've come out here, they've put their car on a podium. Keep in mind, all these teams and drivers are racing in their own class. They're getting points based on their class, not their overall position. And those positions, the top 3 podium positions, are well worth mentioning. I do believe. I want to talk about the number 70 car. That's Thomas Crabb, who is a fellow commentator here at Redline Motorsports as well. They're in 25th position, 4th in the AM class. But still, as we continue to watch this battle here, this, of course, is Kinsler in front, and this is Vatanen in the 15th place. This is not for anything other than overall position, but still, it is a position, and racing drivers will racing driver. So, as we see the Porsche squirting through there, I believe that's, yes, that is the 117. That is not for position, of course. So this has actually really just been an incredible race. It's unfortunate for some of the leading cars. They've had a bit of worry and bother. There's certainly some names that we haven't even mentioned today because they've had a bit of a bad race, or a bad go of it, I should say. And the reason we've jumped back to Mr. Boswell here is because you see a very white Bentley, or blue Bentley, I should say. No, unsure which it actually is. My eyes are broken. I apologize. But either way, it is a Bentley in front of him. Mr. Boswell has caught the 5th place car overall with 3.5 minutes left to go. So, if I'm Mr. Boswell, I want the position, but I don't want to make a move if it's going to let Honorati catch up to me again, because he does have a bit of a gap on him now. And also worth mentioning too, 3rd place car number 25, Phil Vitt, is closing down massively on Civilati now. It's down to 3.6 seconds with 3 minutes to go. 7 minutes. When we were 7 minutes away from the end of this race, he was 7.5 seconds away. So there might be a last-ditch effort, especially if we get an extra free lap, i.e. if the leader, the 126 of Berrezzini, comes across the line with maybe a second or so to go. If he gets a free lap, Phil Vitt might have a shot for 2nd place in class here, and that would be massive for that team attempting to compete for the championship in Pro. But we, of course, stick with Jake Boswell here on Matyasi. This is silver on Pro, but that's not the important thing here. The important thing here is this is for 5th overall. Will Mr. Boswell attempt to make the pass? Ryan Gill, would you make this pass?
At this point in the race, with what I've got to potentially lose, I'm not sure I would. However, I can see the mentality and the way of thinking that Jake Boswell has here. He thinks to himself, if I can get past Matyasi, that puts a car between me and Honorati. That gives him a buffer. It gives him a safe space, you could call it, where he doesn't have to worry about the car directly behind him, because of course that car is a car that's not racing full position. Fabian Schroeder did just point out the fact that Phil Vitt had done a 140.7 which was about 2.3 seconds quicker than Civolotti ahead of him. That now down to 2.9 seconds with a minute 15 left on the clock. I believe that we are going to get an additional lap. This is going to be the penultimate lap, I believe, and I think the next one is going to be the final lap of the race, so that should be interesting. We'll be covering, I think, 70 laps in total. But interesting now, as Onorati gets past Thomas Crab in the Ferrari. Onorati's going to be hoping that Jake Boswell doesn't try and get past the Bentley. Onorati wants Jake Boswell to get held up, and he is starting to get held up slightly. Onorati is closed down to 0.7 of a second. That gap was at 1.4 seconds just on the previous lap, so it's going Onorati's way at the moment. Jake Boswell has to be careful, and as the game has just confirmed, it will be the last lap. Well, the leader has started the last lap, which will be 70 laps in total. And it's going to be interesting to see where this one goes from here.
Yeah, Jake has really had a great drive here, and catching back up to the back of Matyasi, who has seemingly made a couple of errors coming into the closing stages of the race. I've seen him struggling a little bit with the Bentley. Currently is on the flashes. Jesse will be very happy to see some more flashing lights going down, as making sure that back markers are aware that there's a battle on track for position. I mean, Matyasi really doesn't have anything to lose here, letting Jake Boswell past. But of course, racing drivers are racing drivers, and if it's on track for position and it's just classes that you're racing against, you're not going to just make that easy. And Onorati has closed right back down onto the back of Jake Boswell.
Here we go.
They are going to start their final lap, fighting it out. Jake is going to go defensive, hold the inside line from the beginning. That's going to force Onorati round the outside, but it's let Jake get himself onto the inside. Side by side, they will go through Crowthorne, and now they begin through Yuxke Sweep. It looks like the Ferrari is just a touch ahead, and Jake has lost out the position just before barbecue. Now he needs to fight back. He needs to hold on. We've seen Jake has looked quick coming up through Sunset. It will be up to these closing couple of corners before the S's that you want to get something done, or look towards Leeuwkop. And look at Jake go. He's going to have a look-see. There's a slow car on the outside, on the inside. They're forced back wide. Jake is out to tuck back in behind Onorati coming through Clubhouse. But this is racing at its best, and Boswell has unfortunately had to drop back off where he would want to be coming up to Leeuwkop here, and I think Onorati has got the move done on the final lap. Coming up to Leeuwkop though, nothing is done until the very end. Jake gonna try the wide approach once again, trying to get on the accelerator early, try and carry as much speed down through Mineshaft as he can, but Onorati here will have the ability to defend hard. It's difficult to make passes through Crocodile and through Cheetah, but will Jake Boswell bring something round? All three cars coming through the apex of that corner perfectly. I don't believe the move is going to be done here. Onorati, what a bit of driving as they're going to come down through Ingwe, as we see that we have kind of lost the race leaders. We'll top back on that, but it looks like this is going to just be put on ice. Jake Boswell not able to do it. I'm going to hand back over to you, Jesse, to run us down through the end of the race standings.
Well, that was an incredible race between those two guys. We're going to go to the top of the order. Berrezzini driving the 126 Porsche. They had the pole for the race, immediately lost it on the first lap, but due to sticking with the leader all race long, and after some unfortunate events involving a lap down car, no further action by the stewards, of course, they were given the chance to win this race, and they did not fail in that regard. Berrezzini is going to win the race for Orion. And second place is going to have to be the 117 of Civolotti, a team that made such a brilliant start, that Apex Racing team that will come up just a bit short after dealing with all sorts of adversity halfway through this race. And the final podium position in Pro is going to go to the number 25 Nuka Motorsports team, Phil Vitt behind the wheel, bringing it home in third place. And mind you, there was almost a battle for second place, less than a second in it between the two of them as they come across the line. And what a recovery drive it was for the number 49 Ferrari, the Jardier community team. This finished by Samir Ibrahimi. coming all the way back to the front after being punted down to 13th place. Fourth place, an excellent rebound for them. Fifth place is owned by the 312 Bentley. That's Mityasi, the first Silver Cup car. They are your Silver Cup winners. Honorati will get by Jake Boswell in the 192 Ferrari and take home fifth in the Pro Class. Sixth for Jake Boswell after what was an incredible drive that saw them come out from outside the top 10 and into seventh place overall and sixth in their class. Second place in silver is eighth place overall. It's the 514 of Geider, the one of the few Lexuses, if not the only Lexus in the race. Had a quiet race, but brought it home second in their class. Akos, that's not Jaitvin. What am I saying? That's the 317 of that. Well, I'm just going to call him Eris because I cannot pronounce him. That's the Lazy Devs team. The Kunos Dev team was in action here today. They also had a quiet race in 317. They're going to finish ninth overall. The 127 who had so many moments in this race that we'll remember, this Polizzi who finished out in the Racing Line Porsche entry. They're going to take the end of the top 10. Of course, Sebastian Brunier in the 777 will finish third in his class. And moving to the first AM car, this is Kinsler in the number 8. That's the GT Series MS Boatley team. They are going to win the AM class today. And of course, 248, that's Carmelo, who will take second in AM. And 123 of Jones rounds out the top 3 in the AM class. Folks, what a crazy, fun, and down-to-the-wire race that was for so many positions, so many podium positions in the race. Thank you guys for joining us. First of all, and before you go, feel free, please hit that follow button on Twitch for us. And if you're watching this in the VOD, before you turn off, hit like, and please subscribe on YouTube. We're doing this nearly every day, and we cannot do it without your help. And I'm going to throw it back to Ryan Gill, the man at the controls. First of all, Ryan, thank you for having the cameras and all those exciting angles that brought this race to life for us today. Final thoughts.
It's my pleasure today, Jesse. Of course, just something I wanted to clarify with a lot of people. Massive apologies for the delays that went on before the start of this race. The server restarts, the session restarts, and all this sort of stuff. There were issues on the Kunos servers that were completely out of our hands. We couldn't control them. Some people didn't get to start tonight. It's a massive shame. But we appreciate everyone being here today. We appreciate everyone who could show up to race and everyone who did join into the stream and was patient enough. And I hope the race was more than enough to make up for the delays that we did have. As Jesse was saying, we've got some racing going on almost every single day. I can actually give you some up-to-date information on what is going on for the rest of the weekend. So 11 p.m. BST tomorrow is the second race of the Night Owl Championship Split 1. That's going to be commentated by Jesse, Nick, and I believe another one of our commentators. Is it Liam?
I believe that is correct.
Yep, so they'll be covering that race tomorrow, 11 p.m. BST for that one. Then we have the Ferrari versus Lamborghini Pro Split on the Sunday. It's going to be Nick, Mike, and myself covering that event. We're going to be covering the Pro Split at Misano, Ferrari versus Lamborghini. Battle of the Italian manufacturers. It could be raining. That's going to be absolutely incredible. On Monday, we have the NSX Cup Pro. That's going to be at Zolder, 7:30 p.m. BST for that one. And then, of course, on the Tuesday, we're also going to have the Pro-Am Championship for the NSX Cup. And, of course, if that wasn't enough already, if you fancy watching some of the NSU cars, which we had on our YouTube channel, we had those streamed on Wednesday. They'll be live at Brands Hatch at 7 p.m. BST next Wednesday as well. So, unbelievable 5 days of racing coming up over the next week or so, and obviously so much more. We've got the Brands Hatch anniversary event for ACC as well, and we have a very, very big announcement coming at the Brands Hatch anniversary event, so do not miss it. That is definitely one you want to stick around for. But apart from that, I want to say a big thanks to everyone who was here today. A big thanks to everyone in the chat. Obviously, we had a lot of good communication from people in the chat. I want to thank the live stewards we had here today, the admins for doing an amazing job, as always, the drivers for putting on a great show, and I want to thank Jesse Lee and George Smith for joining me in the commentary box. Redline Motorsport will be back tomorrow at 11 PM BST for the Night Owl Season 1 Race 2, and we hope to see as many of you there as possible. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.